The views, opinions, and representations expressed on the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network and its website are those of the hosts, guests, and participants, and are not necessarily those of or endorsed by the network, its affiliated stations and broadcasts, the management, other hosts, or advertisers of the network. The show is found on the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network can, but do not necessarily, promote any particular lifestyle, belief, religion, political affiliation, or other personal practice. These shows are for entertainment purposes only, and are not intended to treat, diagnose, and or claim any cure of disease or condition, or give any medical or legal advice. Eric, S4 Radio, on Night Dreams Talk Radio Network, gets deep into the paranormal.
Good evening or morning, depending on where you are, and welcome to S4, the voice of Forest Moon Paranormal, coming to you live from FMP headquarters in the heart of the Cascade Mountains in Concrete, Washington. FMP is a highly active emergency response team for all aspects of the paranormal, from aggressive hauntings to alien interaction, Bigfoot and other cryptids, and everything in between is terrifying. S4 is the voice where we discuss these things in detail. Not only can you find S4 right here on Night Dreams Talk Radio, but for our local listeners, also on KSVU 90.1 FM from 10 to 12 Saturdays with our pre-recorded shows. So tonight, folks, it's already the last Saturday of February, which means it's time for Roundtable. I know. But Eric, we always have a Roundtable theme on S4. Well, the monthly Roundtable means there's no set topic. Each S4 member brings 3 questions to the panel on anything paranormal, conspiracy, or current events that are important to them for us to discuss. So it's time to relax, kick back, get your cigarettes out, get your coffee out, and enjoy the show. So tonight with us, we have Cole Wegleitner, our FMP Lore and Culture Research Specialist and owner of Statement of Sound DJ Services, Steve Monchak, our FMP Drone Operator and Mountain Expedition Specialist, R. Keith Andrews, our Alien Race Specialist in FMP, Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, and tonight we have Gary Tombstone Anderson, owner of Night Dreams Talk Radio. So how is everyone doing tonight?
Awesome. Not bad, no. How's yourself?
Oh, it was my 50th birthday party, so yeah, it was. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about being 50. I really don't.
You want to
It's
swap?
pretty much the same as being 49.
Yeah, I know. But, yeah. And it's not the number. And, you know, I don't know what it is. Do you remember how you felt when you turned 50, Gary?
You know what? 50, I kind of was a little bit depressed. I tell you, it didn't hit me till I hit 65.
Mm-hmm.
And then I really hit. So you're a young kid. Oh, don't worry about it.
Wait, no, it's so I don't know what it is. It's not the fear of, oh my God, I'm 50, or, you know, the health issues or anything I've got now. The health issues I've got now came from the Army, and I know where that comes from. It's not because of age. I don't know. I don't even think it's that I'm 50. I think it's more the state of this, the state of our nation, the state of the world, that just irritates me. And I'm really biting not to get into politics tonight, but it's going to be hard. Just because, yeah. Anyway.
Well, don't forget, Eric. You know what? If 30 years ago, when I was 50 years old, I said the same thing. You know, about the world, you know, the country. I felt the same way as I do now. But because of the internet, you hear about all these things more, and it gets more compounded. And you know what? Everybody believes what the internet says. So, you know, it really does get people down.
But there's so much.
Agree with that.
There's so much hate and division, and you can look at every administration and you can say the same thing, but I don't know. This particular time feels different. I don't know why. I don't know if it's just me or I really don't know.
Well, I think part of it is that everybody has focused on. I mean, I remember the same thing when Nixon was going through his Watergate. where everybody was looking right there and going, oh, the world's going to heck in a handbasket. But, you know, I really do. When I talk about, I point the finger at the media a lot, is because of one little detail. It's a well-known fact that whatever gets shown on the front page of a newspaper is what people focus on. It's what gets replicated. Now, if the media, I'm not saying don't report the news, it's bad. I'm referring to report the news that's good in a more prominent place. The world would be, the people around you would be a heck of a sight happier if on the front page of the newspaper was somebody, and it could be somebody anonymous for that matter, but somebody's wedding instead of a murder.
Right. So,
You know,
real quick, too. So, Craig's just stirring the pot. So we have Craig in the chat room going, "What's my thoughts on Trump?" Well, I'm not going to go there. I'm just not. What I am going to say is we have a lot more serious things to worry about than a wall.
Well, can I say something, Eric?
Yeah, of course.
You know, we got a lot of things going. We got a false economy going. You know, we remember back when we had the housing bubble and it burst. Well, you know, our economy is not the economy people think it is. You know, back on my show months and months ago, I got a lot of ridicule from a lot of my listeners because I try to tell people what was going to happen with these tariffs. And people told me, I don't know what I'm talking about. Well, you know what? Yeah, we got a lot of jobs out there. If you like working at Burger King, McDonald's, or KFC, yeah, or part-time jobs. Right. But, you know, we're about ready for our economy to start collapsing here very shortly because we have, it's crazy and people can't see it. You know, the mortgage companies, the banks are lending to people again with no, security, no jobs in a lot of cases. You know, I think the economy is set to go into a deep recession probably in the next couple of months, and people don't realize it. And it bothers me so much about this tax cut people got.
No.
They didn't get no tax cut.
No.
What they did is got screwed over because, you know, a lot of people, you know, I hate to say it, lower income people, they float from paycheck to paycheck. I was there one time in my life. I know what it's like. But, you know, a lot of them, they all year long, they wait for that tax refund to pay off their debts they have, to get something fixed on their car or pay bills off or pay off these payday loan companies. And a lot of people are finding out they're not getting the amount of a refund they thought they were going to get, or they're going to owe money, they're going to owe penalties, they're going to owe a lot of money that they didn't think they were going to have to pay. And, you know, it's not just that. I talked to a guy, it was on the news. He made TVs, I think in Georgia. And he's one of the last companies in this country that still made TVs. I thought Curtis Matthews, 35 years ago, was the last company making TVs in the United States. No, this guy had 100 employees. He's making little TVs, importing most of his parts, actually. But because of the tariffs, he had to lay off his 100 employees. He's out of business. And it's a lot of companies are going out of business because what's going on.
Right. And, you know, I think you're absolutely right. It is a fake. Everything is fake. It's a fake economy. It's, you look at Obama, and Obama had employment increases. They all did. But I don't know. You look at Fox, you look at CNN, you look at MSNBC, they're all fake news. They are fake news. They only tell the news based on which side of the fence they fall on. That's the bottom line.
But as bad as you get it both from Washington, D.C. and the news media both. So who do you believe? Your gut feelings, that's what you believe.
Well, I believe gut feeling, and if I hear, I'll give a perfect example. I've got friends around the world, so if I hear something that's major going on, that's hitting the news, I will contact my friends in that country that are being affected and find out what's really going on. For example, you've got these rape gangs going on in Germany. Well, I contacted my German friends and said, okay, so what's going on? I said, okay, so if you are in Munich, if you are in Stuttgart, if you are in Frankfurt, you might have a chance of being attacked. But that's about it. It's not near as bad as what the media is portraying. We're safe. And that came from Germans, not from the news. That's where I get my news. If I want to know if it's going to snow, I look out the window. There you go.
Yeah, the erotic method works really well for me. Look at the horizon, see what direction's going, that's what you get.
Exactly. So I got to give a shout out to Tim and Craig. They're in the chat room. And Nikki. Good evening, guys. And so before we kick off Roundtable, I want Steve to jump in real quick and introduce himself because this is his first time on the show. He is one of our FMP team members.
How you guys doing? Steve Monchak. I am a drone pilot, Western Washington State, retired military. Spend most of my time now either doing aerial photography, looking for Bigfoot, or search and rescue. So been on some pretty big ones in the last few months. Did actually help find a couple boys that were missing up at Mount Baker most recently, but pretty much that's me. Just an old guy, likes to go out with a drone. He's
our skeptic.
I'm a skeptic, but I believe in 90% of what you guys tell me. So I'm not really much of a skeptic anymore.
Nah, not really.
Oddly enough, I'm probably a bigger skeptic than most people.
So we're going to kick off Roundtable with Steve. So what's your first question for tonight?
Well, I guess since I said I wasn't going to talk about politics, but you guys started talking about politics, I guess I'd have. I guess my question would be for you, Eric. It's more of a statement and question. I see the problem not being the fact. I agree with the other gentleman that the world's a smaller place because of the internet, and we see more today than we ever saw 30 years ago. But the biggest thing I see as being a problem is that we, instead of having politicians or people in charge that want to help the people, we have activists. And I think they push their own agenda, and we have two sides that are pushing two strong agendas. Me being I'm not sure if you know, I'm sure you do, Eric, but I'm a libertarian, so I fall in the middle of all that. So where does that put me in the middle of when you guys are fighting about a wall or immigration or something like that?
Ground zero.
Me sitting here in the middle. What am I supposed to believe, and what am I not supposed to believe, and how can I trust either one of you?
Exactly. And I don't even know where I fall anymore. Because honestly, I was more of a Bernie fan than any of them. And when he got screwed over or paid off, bought out, however you want to look at it, I voted for Jill Stein. I wasn't going to throw, lower my personal values on either Trump or Clinton. And I don't know. I just see it going downhill from here.
Well, I've seen this pattern before, but unfortunately, I remember past lives, which is where I saw it. Rome did exactly the same thing, and I do agree with you that the economy is about to take a nosedive, because what they're not telling you is, and they're starting to loan almost indiscriminately, but there'll come a time when all of a sudden the banks start foreclosing on everything. And the moment they do that, the economy is going to tank, and it won't just be the U.S. that gets hit by it. The ramifications will be global.
Cole, we're moving in with you.
God. Well, you're moving in here. Yeah, it's cool, all right.
Oh.
Can I say with his question about who you're supposed to trust?
Yeah, I'd love to hear.
I was given the best advice years ago by my dad. And that is, you believe 1/4 of what you hear and only 1/2 of what you can see. The rest of it is yes.
That's great advice. Absolutely great advice. And going off of how you answer that, I continue by saying, looking at the world today, I still see a ton of good out there. I'm an optimist when it comes to what might happen. Not a fan of walls, but I'm a fan of a lot of what Trump has done for the economy, for African Americans. I mean, we have the lowest unemployment level, and I know, Eric, you were talking about Obama's numbers, but at the time we were still upwards of 20% unemployment, and that was horrible. And if you look at the difference now to then, I'd say we have done a turnaround in the economy. Yeah, we're going towards a bubble, but I think we have to see it from both points of view. I think Obama was great socially, but I think Trump is way better economically.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you think about it, Trump was a businessman before he became a politician. And that's what was needed, was somebody to look at the finances.
Oh,
now,
no.
this does not
How
mean...
could you say that? How could you say that? He was one of the all the other billionaires say he was slimy and all that stuff. I am sorry. A Trumpy slump, whatever I'm going to say. Well, yeah, he was a businessman. You know what? When his father passed away, he managed to get all his other siblings' money, and then he was bankrupt. He a massive amount of money. That's how good a businessman he was.
I didn't say he was good. I said he was a businessman.
Yeah, not a single bank in the United States would loan him money, but some bank in Russia was loaning him money to build his casinos and all this stuff, when no banks in this country would touch him because they knew what type of person he is. A good businessman would pay his debts. You wouldn't go hire a contractor and then all of a sudden try to find every excuse not to pay him. I mean, the guy...
Well, like I said, I didn't say he was a good one. I said he was a businessman. But I mean, look at it this way. Obviously, enough people in your country saw something in him, or he wouldn't be sitting in office right now.
You know what it is? People, it's funny. People want to hear things. So if you get somebody up there, it promises what the people want. And really, I'm going to make America great. I'm going to create all these jobs. I'm going to do this. We're going to have record sales to all these countries, right? And we're going to manufacture in this country again. And come up and imaginate a lot of this stuff. People buy it because the same way they always have done it. Like look at the Nazis during World War II when they went into Warsaw. It's the same thing. It's propaganda. People love propaganda. You say the right stuff to people, guess what happens? They go for it. I don't understand the American people. I really don't understand them.
Hence my comment at the beginning of it, that if the media would start putting the positive stuff on the front news, such as the stories of the people that are actually out there helping people, the people that are out there unifying, as in putting weddings on the front page instead of who got murdered or who ripped off who, frankly, society would take a turn for the better. And that's on a global level. That's not just one country only. That's the whole 9 yards of them. Because you're absolutely right. People will listen to what they're shown, or what they're told.
Going off that, people listen to the first story they're told, even if it's not true. And then when finally someplace like, say, the New York Times or the Washington Post prints a small little article saying that they were wrong about something, only 1/100th of the people that actually saw the original article read that. So they continue believing that down the line, and that makes them angrier and angrier. I mean, if you watch CNN every day or Fox or anybody, you're gonna think that our whole world is crumbling, and you're going to be mad at everybody in power. Not everybody in power, left or right, is bad. Some of them do still have our best interests at heart, but it's hard to weed through all of that when nothing is said except negativity from the media.
when the elections were first happening, with Trump and Hillary and Bernie and all that, I got asked by one of my friends in India, why does it seem like there's a lot of veterans that are voting for Trump? And I had to think about that for a second. And veterans, or folks in the military, soldiers, are tired of politicians. It's politicians that send us to war. So they're not going to vote for a politician. Trump's not a politician. He's a businessman. So he would be the obvious choice for someone in the military or a veteran. So that was my answer for that. And you know,
I want to say, sorry, Eric.
No, go ahead.
I want to say something about Steve's comment and Keith's comment about the media. The one thing that has really changed over the last few years from a media perspective is the fact that people are not reading the stories anymore. They are headline people. The one thing that has cursed the media is Twitter. And the reason why is, as the world has become a 24-hour society where we want updates as fast as possible, the idea of getting facts is not the same as getting the news out as quick as possible. That is the biggest issue that we have regarding the media. The media no longer checks their sources. They no longer are wanting to play the way they did. It's about infotainment. It's about numbers. And unfortunately, it's still the old adage, two adages: sex sells, and if it bleeds, it leads.
You know, there is a reason I don't get into discussions in politics. Because, frankly, I don't see a difference between the people running the country, the people running the media, and the people walking down the street.
Say that again.
I said there's a reason I don't get into discussions regarding politics.
Yeah.
Because I don't see a difference between the people running the countries, the ones running the media, or the people walking down the street. I don't see a difference between income brackets or gender or age bracket. None of it.
Well,
people are people. And quite frankly, that includes all the various different races that you're dealing with.
Right, and there shouldn't be. And we don't have a race war going on. What we have is an income bracket war. It's you have
also known as class war.
There you go. That's why I was trying to think of the term. But
yeah, but Eric, 1 second here. If you look at this Jussie Smollett case that just happened in Chicago, where the black gay actor claimed that he was beat up by MAGA thugs, okay, right. White MAGA thugs, all right? I mean, why is that story not getting the pub and the... It's getting publicity. No, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of people on both sides of the ledger, whether you're white, black, Hispanic, they are pissed off. They want this guy fired. He embarrassed an entire cause for his own gain. All right. Now let's take a look at something here. This is what people are sick of. I'm not saying what my opinion is on it, okay, because my opinion doesn't matter. But I've been following this case. All right. But this is what people are sick of. You take Roseanne Barr, she goes and puts out a blatantly racist tweet, and she gets the entire series canceled.
Right.
Okay, because of that tweet, and that she's a Republican and a Trump supporter. This guy does something just as heinous, but because he's a Democrat, because he's black, because he is gay, they keep him on the show. There's no firing him. There's no canceling the show. So what the people are saying, and what I am reading on social media, is the fact of where is the justice? Where is the guideline of what is going on? Look, what he did was disgusting. What Roseanne Barr did was disgusting. The action that the network took against her was extremely justified, in my opinion. Okay? But where is the justice on the other side of the ledger when we're finding out that this guy did it to promote himself by being a victim? And that's the problem with the victim mentality that we have going on in today's society. It doesn't matter whether you're a Trump supporter, whether you're a Trudeau supporter, whether you're a Democrat supporter. It doesn't matter. It's the victim society that continues to get all the free enterprise of what is going on. Everybody wants to forgive Jussie Smollett,
right?
But they're not willing to forgive other actions. And that's where the hypocrisy, which is dividing a lot of people around there and around America and around the world, is this divide. And that's what makes it difficult.
Yeah, there's a truth to that. But when we say that it's both sides, I mean, everybody wanted to play the victim. I don't see it as being both sides. I see one side definitely playing that card more than the other. And this is coming from a guy who doesn't side with either side. I just see the far left becoming a let's whine loud enough and we'll get our way type of political organization. I see the right as becoming dangerous because the right are the soldiers and the men who have fought to protect the freedoms of this country. And when you finally do make them mad, well, that's when the left is going to actually see what happens when not are in charge. Because a guy who's on the right that's pushed too far has the knowledge and know-how to deal the damage that's necessary to take over or take back the country.
Good point. Good point. So moving along. Dave, what's your first question tonight?
My first question of the night is about cryptids because, you know, we talk a lot about Bigfoot. We talk a lot about Dogman. However, there are a bunch of other cryptids that are out there that don't get as much attention as maybe they deserve. So my question to the panel tonight is about cryptids. In your opinion, what is a cryptid that we're not paying enough attention to that deserves probably the same amount of coverage as Bigfoot or Dogman?
You know, on that, so real quick too, March 30th, we actually have Butch Wachowski on the show to talk cryptids. So I just want to throw that out there too. But whatever happened to Chupacabra? You know, back in the 90s, you heard a lot about Chupacabra. Whatever happened to him?
They gave him a bottle of tequila. He's happy. He went back home.
Yeah, not likely. He didn't come from here. He may have been happy with the bottle of tequila, don't get me wrong. At least until the morning after the night before.
I'm just curious.
Well, I got something to say about cryptids. Is a lot of people. I had a guest on Tobias Whalen the other night, and that's what we talked about for 2 hours. You know, and that's what he does. He investigates all these reports. And the problem is a lot of people, you know, mistake cranes, for example, as Mothman. A lot of things are going on in our world. You know, the magnetic field is changing by moving rather fast. We also have global warming or coal, whichever way you want to stand on it.
Right.
But it's throwing off the migration of birds. And what he's finding in a lot of states, for example, where people haven't seen these giant birds before because their migration is shifted. And all of a sudden they're thinking, oh my God, I saw a Mothman, or I seen this, or I seen that. When actually, you know, it can actually be accounted for what it is. So I think right now a lot of things are being misunderstood of what they are.
And that makes sense, because if you've ever seen a crane before, you're going to think, oh, wow, it's a pterodactyl.
Especially at night. Yeah.
Right? So that makes sense. Anyone else? Because, you know, we're in the heart of Bigfoot country. So
I think Eric, I think the reason why Bigfoot is more popular than a lot of other cryptids is because unlike Chupacabra and some of the other regional, this is where you'll have to help me out, the other types of cryptic creatures that could be out there. I think the difference is that in just about every nation, in every part of the world, there's either a story of a Yeti or a Bigfoot compared to the Chupacabra being more of a local thing. I think we get a whole lot more information on the more famous monsters because they are more famous and they're out there and have been seen by more people.
I would certainly agree with that. And again, it boils down to the same thing. It boils down to publicity and visibility.
Well, I got something about Bigfoot.
Well, the visibility part is a little tricky with the cryptid. But when it comes to the publicity, I agree wholeheartedly that because Bigfoot is in various different forms all over the world.
Right.
Right, various different relations. They're easier to spot. Or easier to catch, to get the concept of.
Yeah, they're more common, too, especially in lore. Anyway, Gary, what were you going to say?
Well, about Bigfoot. I had an encounter up in the Canadian Rockies myself in 2002. And you know a little bit about it, Eric. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to tell you, they don't give off orbs. They're not fuzzy, warm, friendly creatures, at least my encounter. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm willing to take a polygraph test, any test you want to give to prove I saw one. But me and my friend, who was a medical doctor at the time, his father was a Superior Court judge in Pierce County. His brother was a very prominent criminal attorney in Pierce County, Washington. And they were fronting his money for his first, office, medical practice. And we decided to go up to the Canadian Rockies and go up to a Japanese internment camp that was used during World War II. Way out there, secluded. We had to go off to the side road, then hike in about 2.5 miles. Now, I saw a Bigfoot, and I'm going to be honest with you. I hear, because I get a lot of people on my show that, talk about Bigfoot. They never seen one. But what they do is read the frickin' internet. Yeah. So everything, as you know, on the internet is true, 100% true. So everything they read, like I had a guy who bugged me for months wanting to come on my show, claiming he was a Bigfoot hunter of 20 years. Well, I finally called the guy up, talked to him. You know what his Bigfoot hunting for 20 years was?
Google.
Reading books and then Google. Yeah, he never went out and looked. Right. Now, I didn't go out and look for a Bigfoot. We ran into him. I know what happened. And I tell you, I was in Vietnam in Special Forces. I never pissed my pants once in the military, not even through basic. I pissed my pants when that thing came after us.
Oh, yeah.
It give off lovable orbs, and was it friendly? It was not friendly. So I kind of get, I treat all my guests that come on my show with respect. Does it, like Art Bell used to tell me when we used to talk on the phone a lot, it's entertainment. And that's what my show is. It's nothing more than entertainment. But I try to make it interesting. But I tell you, I get really offended when some people come on and never seen a Bigfoot and say, oh, they give off orbs. They give off fuzzy feelings. They do this and that. That's not true. It's not true. I'm sorry. I don't smoke pot and I don't drink. But sometimes when I talk to these people, I want to.
Yeah, you need a drink after the show.
No, or dear.
And I'm there with you. As far as I've heard, both sides of that fence. I've never heard of the whole orb thing. I do think they're interdimensional. I do think they're territorial. I think they can have the aggressive side by all means. And most of the Bigfoot encounters you hear about here in the Cascades, they're not friendly. They keep to themselves.
Well, they're not exactly social with Homo sapiens, that's for certain.
No. And I've heard, I've had witnesses in Darrington, for example, that actually encountered something that was Bigfoot-like and actually had a log thrown through their car window as they were driving down the road. So that's not a friendly love and light orb throwing Bigfoot. You know, that's an aggressive one. On the flip side of that, Larry Anderson, our Bigfoot guy in FMP, like I've told on the show before, had a friend that went up and played guitar. He played guitar in the mountains for like 2 or 3 hours, left, came back the next day, and was gifted with flowers. Showing, you know, Bigfoot apparently likes music. Is that a friendly being? No, he didn't come out and dance for the guy. He just left him some flowers. So, you know, I don't think it's a being that you want to go trying to find. I don't think it's a being that you want to make friends with.
You certainly don't want to corner it.
No, not by any means.
But, you know, like you, I've never heard of them giving off orbs before.
No.
No, there's a lot of people that they really think that they communicate with them by giving off orbs and this, you know, fuzzy feeling. That's not the case. You know,
I know when I was growing up, there was a kid that used to pray to a light bulb, too. That worked out well.
A dim light bulb, I hope?
No, unfortunately, his parents had actually, in his case, a little bit of a sidetrack there, but his parents had made sure that they kept the light bulb changed so it was always fresh. And then one day when he was praying to it, the parents had forgotten to change the bulb. It went out while he was praying. The guy snapped. You know, but I've never heard of any connection between Bigfoot and orbs, and especially using orbs to communicate with.
Oh, I've heard it a numerous amount of times with my guests on. Maybe I have strange guests. I don't know. But I you know, another thing, like when I was talking to Boz, you know, you don't, you know, I do believe there could be somehow time slips, portals and things like that. Maybe that's how they're appearing. I don't know. I don't know how they're getting here. You know, I know I was out in the middle of nowhere. But, you know, it's one thing. I had a guest on my show who was out looking for Bigfoot and all that stuff. And I said, do you take any protection? And he goes, yes, I carry a 6-inch knife with me. A pocket knife. I correct myself. A pocket knife.
He carried a pocket knife.
He carried a pocket knife going out.
That's not called protection.
No.
Well, he thought it was. And I said to the guy, I said, aren't you worried about cougars or mountain lions or bears? You know, when I was a little kid, my uncle almost died from a bear attack up at Mount Shasta, and that would have been like about 55 years ago. When I was up in the Canadian Rockies and we ran into the Bigfoot, we ended up going to a little store. It was like 15, 20 miles away from where we were at. We were shook up. We were talking to the guy, and the guy actually was a displaced American that went over there during the Vietnam War. But he said a week before that, a guy and his wife were out there in the woods. His wife got hurt, so he came and got help. And by the time they got back there to help, his wife was almost all eaten up by a bear.
I'm going to say, at a minimum, I don't go in the mountains with, at a minimum, my 9mm pistol with hollow point. That's at a minimum. Not counting
well, at least
the knives.
you got something that'll stop somebody that isn't armored at that point.
Right. And if I'm hunting, I've got my .308 and my 9mm. But no, I don't believe in ever going in the mountains unarmed at all.
Yeah, no. If you're going in the mountains, I mean, a pocket knife is great if you're looking to carve, you know, to do a little whittling while you're out there. But self-defense, you're hooked.
Right.
Well, it's not just for animals. There are some people out in, if you go certain areas, you don't know what you can run across. So you need protection.
Yeah, I mean we have tweakers here, so yeah. So, Cole, what's your first question tonight?
Okay, so has anyone seen the post that Virgin Airlines just put up?
No.
Facebook. They just did their first successful passenger test flight into space.
Oh.
Huh. I haven't. That's brand new. I haven't seen that one yet.
Okay, so what they actually have are what they're calling space planes that they are sending up, and they've done their testing with just pilots. They have went through the FAA, and all their pilots are certified astronauts. And they took a pilot trainee up as a passenger on a commercial flight in one of these planes, 51 miles up into above the atmosphere.
Well, we knew that was going to happen. It's a natural step.
Huh. I don't know what to think about
How far
that.
do you think this is going to advance us into actually having commercial flight in space?
So, Dave, pulling you into that topic, do you think Bigelow Industries is behind that one?
No, that is strictly Richard Branson who is doing that. And, you know, you got to realize there's three major players in this game right now. You have Richard Branson from Virgin, you have Elon Musk from SpaceX, and then you have Robert Bigelow from Bigelow Aerospace who are in all of this. Okay. And that's really the key issue right there that you got to remember is that they are trying to find a way in order to make it more affordable for people to go. Like they're talking when they start launching Virgin Atlantic, or that it's going to be probably the starting flights are going to be about $100,000 a piece for people to take this tour up into space. That's a lot of money, and for some that's 10 years wages, if that. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, we're going to see a lot of that right now. But I mean, you look at flat screen TVs. At one point, it cost $5,000 to $10,000 to buy a 50-inch flat screen television, and now you can get them with better technology for about $1,000. I mean, that's just the way it goes. I mean, you start off expensive, and then as everything moves forward, it gets cheaper. You know, I think the private space race is going to be very interesting. I love the fact that it is happening. You know, what the key is, what's going to happen on the moon? Are we going to be having hotels on the moon? Are we going to be having, you know, more types of scientific laboratories on the moon?
The answer to that would be yes.
Well, I mean, it's obvious that it's going to happen, but it's just a matter of who's going to make it happen first, because there are only very few people right now who have the pockets in order to do it.
Here's where it gets a little screwy. It already happened. They just haven't told you yet. I mean, granted.
Hotels, that's not fair. Those are prison cells, Keith.
I have no doubt that commercial flights, like term-based commercial flights, are not happening on a regular basis right now. You know, that is something that's just starting. But the issue of there already being trade centers out there and what have you, they've been there for a while. They're just not manned by humans yet.
Well, I mean, yeah, but Keith, you got to realize that there is a big debate. I mean, whether you want to believe in it or not, and I'm a believer in the secret space program, you do have to understand that until that comes out, we can only dissect what we have going on right now, and that's the fact that the secret space program, until they come out and admit it, it's unprovable. I mean, I love talking about it. I'm a big fan. It's one of my favorite topics to speak about, you know, and to be hypothetical about. But until we get actual proof of it happening, we have to go with what's out there. And do I believe we already have bases on the moon and craft that can fly hypersonic and get you to the moon in a couple of hours instead of a couple of days? Yeah, I do. I do believe we are that advanced. You know, is there proof out there? Well, it all depends on what you consider proof. Most people would believe that there isn't the proof out there because it hasn't been shown. They don't believe people like Ben Rich, the former Lockheed Skunk Works president, who stated that we already have the technology to get ET home again, or that we're 50 to 80 years more advanced than what we actually believe. I mean, that's the big thing that we're going on.
And then this is exactly where half the problem is. You know, I absolutely agree with you as far as the so-called missing proof. The thing that I find rather ironic on that is the people they're waiting to give an honest proof from are the same people that are deceiving of everything else.
So Trippin's in the chat, and he posted Virgin Galactic sends its first passenger to the edge of space. That's good news for the 600 people waiting for a ride. Branson hopes to be the first passenger on Spaceship 2. Inaugural commercial flight as early as this summer. So if the company succeeds, it's going to offer 90-minute flights at the bargain price of, wait for it, $250,000. Now,
yeah, that's a bargain price.
Ain't it? So my question, why?
Why not?
How many little flights is that a dream for, though?
Well, I know. I mean, one of the dreams I had when I was growing up was I wanted to get off the planet. I used to tell people that a lot. What I forgot to specify is I didn't want to come back.
Right. I guess, I joined the Army because I like having 2 feet on the ground. I didn't join the Navy because I like water. I have no desire.
Yeah, the Air Force wouldn't work for that.
No, I have no desire to go in space. We have places on our own planet that we haven't even explored yet. Marinara Trench, for one.
Oh, yeah.
And, I just don't see... I don't know. I know there were kids, that have always had the dream of being an astronaut, yada, yada. But I don't see the thrill. Maybe I'm an oddball here.
My question is, the 90-minute flight, is that 90 minutes in the air, or does that include your takeoff and landing?
Right.
At which point you got 15 in the air.
Flight.
Yeah, hopefully that's after they leave the runway.
You can't hold it against people who can afford it, though. All right?
Oh, no.
It's not their fault. I mean, this technology is a lot of money, and there are people who are willing to pay a lot of money for a lot of foolish things. I mean, if you consider it foolish. Now, there's the crowd out there will say, hey, well, instead of using it to go to space, why aren't you donating it to a charity who could use it, or the homeless, or whatever? Because anybody is looking for an excuse on everything as to how people should spend their money. But we don't know that the people who are buying this type of flight aren't, already spending thousands of dollars on helping fight homeless or anything. We always want to jump on the bandwagon and say, what a waste of money. Who would pay $250,000 for something like this? You know what? If you're somebody who's raking in 10, 20, 30, $40 million a year, why not? If you can afford it, why not?
And you know what? It's the same thing as what you said with the TVs. You give it time, and those guys will all have went up. The demand will die out. Eventually, they're going to have to lower the price.
Right. Can you imagine?
And that becomes a matter of economics, whether they can afford to lower it.
But can you imagine the next security risk in the next 10 years when they have these flights going off all the time? Can you imagine how terrorism is going to advance? Human nature, what it is, it's going to be the next thing.
Yeah, oddly enough, human nature is actually to get along. It is human training that brings about jealousy, greed, and fear. Okay. But human nature is actually to get along with each other. You want to see proof of that? Take a whole pile of kids from a bunch of different from a bunch of different families, bunch of different nationalities, and put them all in the same room. They will play with each other.
They don't see skin. They don't see race. They don't see anything. You're absolutely right.
So when we're talking about human nature is actually to get along and to communicate.
So
they're taught the rest of it.
My next question off this question is, do you see a tie with Trump and his Space Force and these 3 airlines going to space?
Absolutely. If the government comes out and says we're going to do this, it's because private industry has already done it. and they want a piece of the pie. And that's the way I see it. Just like when NASA was around, and I mean, it's going to be the same. Elon Musk shot something up there. Other companies are shooting stuff up there now, and the U.S. government can't feel like they're behind.
Well,
they'll have to. I mean,
something they need to be able to actually get there.
Yeah, it's going to be a little hard controlling if they don't.
So Kayla's got a good question in the chat room. Do you think with commercial flights going into space that UFO sightings are going to go up?
Well, clearly.
Yeah, it's not a UFO. It is by definition. It's an unidentified flying object, but it's actually not an off-world craft. It's a Boeing 787 or whatever.
Yeah.
Throw your number in there. So yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. Problem is, it may not be a meteor shower anymore.
It's a falling airplane.
Yeah. But no, there's certainly going to be an increase in sightings, simply by definition of what they are. Mm-hmm. See, the neat part about it is some of what NASA is already up to that they haven't told the general public.
Right.
And that is the fact that they're in the process of, they're pulling a really ambitious stunt that I don't think they've thought through, personally.
No.
And that is they're working on moving an asteroid into orbit around the moon, by which to build a manufacturing plant for putting starships together, because it'll be easier to get the smaller parts off than launch the ship from the ground.
Mm-hmm. So do you guys think that they're doing these different space programs in and out because they know something that we don't, that is coming here, and maybe we need to have a way out?
Well, it won't be for us. It'll be for the rich.
Right.
Obviously.
And you make that sound like, are you asking if we're thinking in terms of there being some sort of invasion force and mankind's trying to build a way off this mudball?
Yeah.
Is that what they...
Well, I got something like to say.
Sooner or later, we'll use up all the resources on this planet. So, I mean, and if you look at it that way, me looking at it from a scientific possibility, that means we have to have some place to go after.
Down.
Oh, yeah. Well, asteroid mining is already being worked on. You just haven't told you about it.
But I understand that. But what I see is that sending out unmanned spacecraft or even manned spacecraft to reach the nearest asteroid would take months, if not years. So if we had colonies or something as such on other planets or moons, then we could have a large population of humans out there, and it both protects us from what's happening to the Earth and gives us the advantage of pulling all those resources back here.
And you're absolutely right. That is the evolutionary path. That is the road that's going to be followed.
So, Gary...
it has to be done one step at a time.
Gary, what were you wanting to throw in there?
What most people aren't aware of is it's already happened.
Well, I wanted to say something, Eric. Going back years ago, when I was like a teenager, my dad's best friend growing up, when I was a little kid all the way up, when my dad was in Korea, during the Korean War and getting ready to be discharged, he became a very good friend of James Gardner, the actor, Rockford Files, and all this stuff. And, when I was a little kid, I didn't know who this guy would come up, and spend a week every summer with my dad and hang around and do things. When I got older, I realized who he was. And I was always infatuated with Ronald Reagan. And when I was older, I asked James, I said, is there any way somehow you can, because at that time, Ronald Reagan had a show for young people. You could call in once a month, ask the president questions. And James said he would see what he could do. Well, I got a phone call one day while the show was going on from the White House, and it was Ronald Reagan. And I talked to Ronald Reagan over the radio. Then a few days later, I get a personal call from Ronald Reagan. And, we were just talking, about some of his movies and all that stuff. And then I just asked him a question because, they were talking about Star Wars. And, people were worried about, war with Russia and all this stuff. And I asked him, I said, would that really protect us if we had a war with Russia? And he goes, I'm not worried about, Russia having a war. I'm worried about them. And, I was young. I didn't think about what he meant, them.
Right.
So when I got older, I kind of realized that them might be something other than what's on this planet.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's funny because I remember that Star Wars program coming out, and the first thing I thought when they mentioned it was they put the Star Wars program out there. From what I gathered, according to the news anyway, the idea was because of the possibility of high-altitude missiles. The only problem was that the whole Star Wars platform was pointed the wrong direction.
Right.
You'd be looking for high altitude missiles, all right, launched in January to land in November.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it always, anytime I think of Reagan, I think of his UN United Nations speech about what it would take for the planet to pull together would be, invasion from an outside force. So, yeah, he pretty much confirmed to you, Gary, what he said on the UN speech.
Oh, yeah. And he was really outspoken. Of course, I think he was starting to suffer a little bit from, out at that point, and people didn't realize it, to after, his ending of his last term. But, I really got that distinct impression that he was talking about, aliens and stuff like that. Because him and Nancy, they were into the occult. They were into all kinds of weird things.
Right.
But here's the really sad news on that one. And it doesn't matter which race we talk about. If any one of the races were to decide that they were going to invade Earth, mankind wouldn't get to fight back.
No.
They wouldn't even know they were being invaded until it was way too late to do anything.
One EMP blast and we'd be done.
Well, that's one thing. Again, you just mentioned something, that is really a sore subject with me right now. We were mentioning a little bit at the beginning of your show about the wall and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I can't understand why we aren't number one concern in this country right now should be the grid system, because after 1 week of no power, the generators are going to start running dry at the hospitals. People are going to start dying off in large numbers. Food will start becoming scarce after about 30 days. Then you look at all these other things that can happen, like the nuclear power plant. Okay, they're not going to be able to produce power, but they got to stay cold. What's going to happen when their diesel runs out? Are all the employees going to run out long before that?
Oh, good bet. Yeah, I mean, we could get this really tied up in a knot in a hurry, but the unfortunate part is, the sad reality is it's going to take something of a global nature, it would seem, to get people to realize one little detail. You want to make things work a little better, get to know who your neighbor is. Find out who it is living right next door to you or right across the hall.
I agree with that.
I agree with that, but I'm talking about all these people who are going to die between, in the hospitals, maybe freezing to death. The chaos that'll start breaking down. You remember Watts? I mean, all this stuff is going to happen really fast. And what really astounds me with this country, right? We can drop all this money every which way. But to fix the grid system is around $5.6 billion. $5.6 billion, but we can talk about building a wall that somebody with a hacksaw or really good at making tunnels, aren't they, coming into our country?
Yeah.
Tunnels good enough where they can put air conditioning in it and drive a car even through. I don't know. I don't understand where these politicians, where everybody's head is at. But the number one thing in this country and Canada, we should be working on our grid system.
I agree with you there.
Makes a lot of sense.
infrastructure.
There's another neat little problem that the scientists already know about and they haven't done jack about. But I can tell you the death toll from it is going to be in the billions, not in the thousands.
No.
And people are so concerned with what are basically petty politics.
Within 72 hours of a grid down situation, you're going to start seeing the first deaths. Just after that, you're going to start seeing what you are talking about in Los Angeles and places like that. What I think we have to understand, though, is the grid is as important as our sovereignty. Now, I'm not a wall fan, but I'm not against the wall. If we do the wall correctly, and me and Eric were talking about this the other day, if we do the wall correctly, we build a wall, but the wall is not going to stop those people. We're still going to need technology to stop those people. We're going to need people like me who are controlling drones, or we're going to have boots on the ground still watching that wall. Provide some jobs at the same time as having the wall. I have no problem with people immigrating to this country legally. I mean, we're all immigrants in the long run, and I see it as just important as the grid that we don't overpopulate this country because, well, if we have a poor grid now, what's going to happen when we're putting even more pressure on it?
Well, there's other things besides building a wall. Look at Area 51. They got devices to detect your ammonia that the body secretes, right? It can detect it. And I mean, there's a lot of things they can do without having. They can build barriers, and they can also use like the same type of technology they use in Area 51 to detect somebody stepping on the property. I mean, come on. I mean, it just makes me this so upset.
In order to, the difference. I think we agree there, but I think the difference is Area 51 is a very small, contained area compared to international border between Mexico and the United States, or Canada and the United States. And me and Eric were both agreeing that both borders need to be protected just as much if we're going to do that, because we're running guns back and forth and drugs to Canada just as much as we are to Mexico. The only reason Mexico gets more publicity is because we have more people being brought across the border. And that's the problem.
No, but
more
that's
people
the problem.
that are brought across the border, more we have to pay to keep those people alive.
You guys are talking, everyone's talking about freeing the border and the wall. The problem is, it's not stopping the drugs, it's not stopping the guns, it is stopping the people. These people that are coming over are the ones that are doing the jobs that the average American won't. They're landscapers, they're taco trucks, they're doing whatever they can to survive in this country.
Yeah, farming.
Most of them aren't actually harming anyone, they're actually boosting this economy. And I
we
think
can argue about that for
75%. The problem is, if you don't get rid of the guns and the drugs, which they're not at all. The problem is, stupid people in office are sitting there protecting these people. In Canada, it just happened. They let a guy who had 280,000 tabs of fentanyl go on a technicality. The problem is, he should be shot, so should the judge who let him go.
Hey, I'll go with you on that, but at the same time in Canada, you can also be put in prison for saying the wrong word. So
that can happen here too.
Exactly, and that's not where I want to go.
If we're talking
no one's told that
law,
you're actually
that is absolutely wrong. That is absolutely wrong that you can be put in prison for saying the wrong word. Let's not over exaggerate things here.
There's absolutely laws against misidentifying or saying the wrong gender to a person in Canada. You can be fined or put in prison. It's in their law. And the fact of the matter is, I don't care about...
I didn't know you lived here.
I don't live here, but I keep up on current events and justice to them.
I mean, hold on a second, because a lot of times, this is what happens, guys. Okay, and we can't deny this. If a Canadian goes and mentions what is happening in the United States, we get barked at and shot down, saying, "Stay away from us. You don't know what you're doing. You're just that pipsqueak annoying brother above us who we could take over and become the 51st state. Number one, you lost twice. But number two, when it comes down to it, all right, when it comes down to it, okay, was there the gender laws passed? Yes, there was. Is anybody actually following it? No. It's like the bicycle helmet law, okay? No, you don't see cops for that. I mean, nobody's getting arrested for it. The only time I have heard an arrest for that happened in Great Britain. It has not happened in Canada.
Is it as bad that they're not getting arrested, but they're having their lives ruined over it? So what's worse in the long run? I mean, we can make these laws, and then people can use these laws. Maybe we're not going to put you in prison, but we're going to destroy your life over it because you said the wrong words. I'm all for freedom of speech. I'm all for everything. Somebody can say whatever they want to me. It's just words. Now, when this comes to a wall, which is what we're originally talking about, or border protection, I like I said, I'm not for a giant wall, especially a giant wall that doesn't keep people out like it's supposed to, unless we put the proper technology in the works as well, which means like you were saying, Area 51 with monitors, with drones, and with boots on the ground. I have no issue with pretty much anything that the left says until they start impeding on my First Amendment rights or anything in the Constitution. That's where my problem is, and that's where you and I will differ because you're in Canada.
Believe it or not, you and I actually
we're the
agree
only,
on that.
We're the only free country in the world. Yeah, absolutely. We're the only free country in the world that has that Constitution to protect our freedoms. You guys
may I ask one little question here, guys? Is there any point to this circle of going around in circles on this one?
No.
No, but I want to say one last thing. People aren't getting the point. That's what when I talk about my show, okay? The wall, right, will keep people supposedly from coming in, okay? It's going to keep, as the president says, all the bad guys coming in. No, they're going to go on through tunnels, okay?
I know I'm going to get in trouble for this, but it's this kind of stupidity that caused me to become a recluse to start with.
So they're going to get something they can cut through the fence, okay, which they already proved they can cut through any part of the fence that's already up there really quick. Now, the other issue is the grid system. Okay, if life means so much to us Americans, right? The thought of thousands and tens of thousands and millions of people dying in a year's time, that alarms me more than anything. And if I have a choice to save 1 million people's lives or building a wall, the people should come first. The wall should be the last thing on the agenda. I mean, we got things like Social Security people. We got everything in this country. It's going to pot. And it's about time we think about our people, not a wall.
So do you think that an additional $250 billion a year would help our people? Like saying,
I can tell you one thing.
If we cleared up and had an extra $250 billion,
do you think that the wall is going to save people's life if we get hit by a flare or anything like that? The amount of people are going to die?
No.
If we had an extra $250 billion, could we build a better grid?
You can build a grid. You can fix the grid for $5.6 billion.
Okay, that's $250 billion is the cost that it costs us for the amount of illegal immigrants in this country every year. So if we stop the influx of illegal immigrants, we can fix the grid, we can stop homelessness. I'm all for social programs, but we have to stop the influx before we can continue with the good. We have to do something bad to do something good.
You're also forgetting how this country was founded.
So let's take every minority that's not supposed to be here and kill them all. So
okay,
I will
guys.
Everyone who's not Native American and take them out.
Okay, let's get away from the politics.
I'm
Let's
done.
get away from the politics. So, Keith, what's your first question tonight?
Well, I'm curious if actually I'm going to bring it back down to, well, shall we say back to off-world. What is it that catches people's attention that everybody seems so interested in the races that are out there that aren't on, that are out and about? when they're not even paying attention to the races, to the primary race that's already here? Why does everybody want to look to the stars to start with?
I think it's
the dream of man.
I think it has to do with trying to find out the origin. Where did humans come from?
Because one of them races had to create us, so.
Right.
Well, you are right there. Somebody did it. But it's actually, mind you, I can tell you how it happened. The only thing I can't do is prove it just yet.
So does it have to do with junk DNA?
There is no such thing as junk DNA. There's just DNA that mankind hasn't figured out what it means and what it's for yet.
Right. But that's what they call junk DNA because they're confused by it.
Yeah.
Do you honestly think that race is never going to allow us to know who they are?
Try that again?
Do you honestly think the race who created us will ever allow us to know that?
I think
we already know.
Well, I think
it's not a question of allowing. It's not a question of allowing mankind to know. Mankind already knows. They were designed that way.
But don't they have to allow humans to find out for themselves? Correct?
Yes, they're not going to come out and go, "Oh, by the way." Okay. The funny thing about it is that the answer lies nestled quite snugly between religion and science.
Now, if I remember right, and I can't remember his name, but there was actually a scientist, I believe in the early 1900s, that actually came out and said we came from aliens, but he got shunned.
That wasn't what's his name. I think
that's a great point. That it lies somewhere between religion and science. I think that's a great point. And I think science just needs to catch up and make it so that we can actually get to where we need to go in order to find what race created us.
Well, oddly enough, religion originally started out explaining the inexplicable. And science developed to figure out how to explain what religion couldn't.
Yeah,
technically, when you think about it, mankind already, the reality of it is, and it boils down to the same thing I end up dealing with people when I'm helping them turn their head around. How you got to where you are is not half as important as where you go from where you are.
Absolutely.
And this is what people are running into. Rome collapsed the same way that modern society is going. They did exactly the same series of steps. But I find it fascinating that so many people look to the off-worlders going, why don't they straighten our mess out? Well, the reason they don't is because you'll just rebuild the same problem all over again. You've done it multiple times.
Right, it's not their job.
So do you think that when they created us, they unlike what religious people believe, me not being religious but knowing religion, would they have created us and said, you've got your free will, go do what you will, but we don't want you to worship us like a god because we want you to grow and become something else? And that's where religion comes from.
The reason for mankind's building was not quite so amicable, but they were told basically, if you guys want to survive, if you want to evolve, get along. That was the whole message. And mankind has dropped the ball badly on that one.
Well, and that's also why they don't come down here. Because we're not getting along. We're not ready to evolve to that level.
Well, let's face it. If you pull a knife on another human and the human has a gun, he's going to pull the gun.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's put this in perspective and just keep it to melee weapons. In the Middle Ages, mankind had something called a mace. Basically about 2 pounds of metal stuck on the end of a rod.
Mm-hmm.
There's one particular race that still carries melee weapons. Of course, their mace is the size of a medicine ball. the reality is peace has never been successfully attained through superior firepower. Okay, all that has done is encourage people to find another way to create a problem.
Okay.
You know,
Do you believe that there's any race that has come to a peaceful end?
yes. I know for an absolute certainty. And again, there's a problem here with my trying to prove it. But you go back to the Lemurian race. The Lemurians were actually an ancient civilization on Earth. They were human. And they simply evolved to the point where they did have 100% global peace. There was no greed, there was no war, there was no fear. Yes, it was still death. Okay, and obviously sorrow that goes along with that, but they had no problem with food. And what brought them to an end, intriguingly enough, was not a war, it was a miscalculation. It was literally a curiosity thing that brought them to a close. But they're not the only race that has attained peace. The Pleiadians have attained peace, so have the Mobians. They've got global peace.
So, and how old are these races, do you reckon?
Well, the Mobians are several thousand years old. They're really not that much older than mankind. Okay, they're about 1,000 years further advanced than mankind at this point. The Pleiadians are millennia beyond that. But mankind is at a turning point right now, and this is why it's got the attention of the galactic worlds, because mankind is at that breaking point where they're either going to pull their head out of their sand or they're going to take society apart right down to the Stone Age again.
Yeah, it's either Armageddon or bust. If we as humans were created by them and they were able to attain peace, why does it take us so much longer? What's wrong with us compared to them?
Well, I can tell you the one thing that's wrong is that mankind on the whole has is a genetic hiccup. They were designed quite literally for war. And technically they were designed by aliens. It's just the only reason they were designed by aliens is because there had to be the people that built the planet weren't from the planet for obvious reasons.
Well, that makes sense, actually.
Okay. So by that definition, certainly they were alien. But mankind itself was built because of war, which is why mankind is as aggressive as it is. But it doesn't mean that mankind cannot get along. Oh, I forgot the other race that has also attained global peace, which are the Vulcans. And no, I do not mean the pointy-eared, green-blooded people from Star Trek. There is actually a planet in this solar system named Vulcan. It's situated inside the sun's photosphere. And for those of you that are science buffs, you can try that again.
So Eric's pretty much correct when he says that we just haven't evolved enough. So does that mean that basically until we, is it going to take us almost eliminating each other to hit that necessary evolution point where we then become peaceful? That's
what we're actually trying to avoid. But I will tell you this, it won't be a war that way. When I said there was something happening that could wipe out billions, it's a funny little problem coming out of the middle of the Canary Islands. It's got nothing to do with mankind, except for mankind turning a blind eye.
So Jason's in the chat room wants to know, maybe humans were created to end all wars with others?
No, they were actually created to end the war amongst the original race that got here. Because mankind, the human genome is very, very easy to repair, replicates like rabbits, comparatively. Mm-hmm. And the surprising thing that nobody was expecting was mankind's ability to tap into something that mankind calls 0-point energy. In other words, the ability that working together, mankind can change the functionality of the neural net, of reality itself. They can alter the odds. Okay, and this has been proven on a number of occasions. But it's that ability. That's why the off-worlders are a little edgy about mankind getting into space. Because between mankind's curiosity and that neat little ability that nobody else seems to have tapped into, makes humans a rather dangerous little race.
Well, I don't blame them. I wouldn't want them in my backyard either.
You know, it's kind of like a 2-year-old. You give a 2-year-old a bottle of nitroglycerin and see how much of a blast he can make. I'd recommend you don't do that.
Right.
You know.
I mean, and I've brought it up on the show before, but I mean, look at CERN, look at the dark matter and the other stuff we're playing with that we don't need to be playing with.
Well, in all fairness, you have to play with the stuff if you're going to build the bigger stuff. Like interstellar travel would never have been even considered back in the 1800s.
But with the state of humans now, if I was an off-worlder, I wouldn't want us in space either.
No. But in all fairness, there's more aggressive races in space. They just don't have that same punch, that same drive to succeed at all costs.
Don't you think that if we were able to make it into deep space, though, and we did encounter some of these peaceful races, maybe we would be able to learn from them?
Learn from them, yes, but the odds are mankind would shoot first, and that would end the learning curve.
Yeah.
I guess that's why we can't allow the governments to control space travel. Then.
No.
You know, like as most people on this show have already heard, I've got a great deal of respect for the military personnel. Not so much for the organization the way it's run, but for the people that go out there and do the work.
Right.
You know, because there's a phenomenal number that go out, they do what their job is, they do their dangest to protect people, and yet more often they're put in situations that are just plain wrong.
Well, I can tell you, me and Eric probably know that firsthand.
Yeah, hands down. Okay, Gary, what's your first question for tonight?
Do you actually think, or do you guys actually think that real disclosure is coming soon? The reason why I say this, I've heard this since 1976 when I first started getting into broadcasting. So I just want your guys' feeling.
Depends on what you mean by soon.
Well,
I was going to ask what real disclosure is.
Well, the disclosure would be on UFOs and aliens. I've heard from some people saying it's going to happen in the next few weeks or the next few months. I've been hearing the same thing, since 1976. I talked recently to Steve Bassett. He doesn't feel it's going to happen in the near future. I just want you guys' opinion.
Well, the odds are not likely because of two major factors. Number one, if we're relying, in all fairness, full disclosure has already happened, is what people don't realize. There's already monuments that have been put up and that have clearly indicated that this was an off-world event. There's even a neat little city in France that has literally passed a law about alien ships parking.
Right.
They literally have a law that says if a saucer-shaped or cigar-shaped UFO lands within city limits, they are to be detained immediately.
Well, and even here in the States, it's in, I can't remember exactly which book it was, but it was a manual that was issued out to fire departments on what to do in the off chance a UFO lands. And that's for fire departments, first responders. And I know Dave can go into the RCMP and what they're supposed to do. So if our governments can come out and say, here's what you do if a UFO lands, or if you see something, They
I'm
all
thinking we've already got
say they
disclosure.
exist.
I just want to say with the fire department,
Say again?
with the fire department one,
Mm-hmm.
you probably don't want to get them wet.
Right.
Depends on which one. There's a few races that getting them wet is just not going to cause a problem.
So, Dave,
Yeah.
what did the RCMP tell you about who to report UFOs to? I like that story.
Well, I mean, you have to look at it. I had a conversation with an RCMP officer in 2017 in regards to UFOs, and I asked him point blank. I said, "What's the RCMP protocol if a UFO call comes in?" And I thought he was going to laugh at me. I thought he was going to dodge the question, and I was very actually proud that he didn't. His answer to me, which kind of stunned me a little bit, was in the air or on the ground. And I was kind of taken aback by that, because the scenario is this. If the RCMP receive a phone call from Joe or Jill Citizen saying that there is a UFO above my house, they report it to the RCMP on 911. RCMP immediately calls headquarters in Ottawa, who immediately calls NORAD in Cheyenne Mountain, Colorado, who disperses the two closest CF-18 Hornets to the area to try and intercept the craft. Now, if it's on the ground, he said he wasn't very sure, but he believes it's the same protocol. However, they will try and get the military out there as quickly as possible to cordon off the area. And you still go through the same protocols of going to RCMP headquarters in Ottawa, which is Canada's capital, and then that phone call then being made to Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado, NORAD headquarters. But here's where it got a little bit interesting. A few months later, I was sitting in a hot tub at the local swimming pool, and I'm sitting with this lady in the hot tub, and a gentleman there was asking me about UFOs, what I did for a living, and I was telling him all about the radio show and so on and so forth. And this lady was kind of getting a little bit eager, and you know how people get eager when they hear about these topics, and all of a sudden she pipes up, she goes, "Oh boy, I have a good story for you." And I was like, okay, whatever, you hear that kind of stuff. And then she pointed at her pendant. She goes, "Do you see my pendant? Do you see what I do?" And I said, "No." I said, "Ma'am, unfortunately, I don't have my glasses on." I said, "What is that?" And she said, "It's a buffalo." Well, the buffalo head is the logo for the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And she goes, "I've been a dispatcher for the last number of years with the RCMP." And she goes, "Let me tell you, everything that officer told you is true. However, I'm going to give you further information." And of course, I love the juice. So I said, "Okay, no problem." And she says to me, "When we get a call at dispatch about a UFO, everything else in the office gets dropped." She goes, "So I take the report. I then immediately, let's say there's somebody breaking into someone's house. I will take the report and I will put it on the staff sergeant's desk, who will immediately dispatch officers. However, if there is a UFO report, there is actually a special file place for the UFO reports to go. And if there is a UFO reported in, everything else is dropped, and that UFO file is now taken care of." And that caught me off guard, because here you could have someone breaking into the local supermarket or the local bank, and it doesn't rank up as high as a UFO report.
that immediately has to be dealt with by the staff sergeant on duty and immediately reported to Ottawa, which is where RCMP headquarters goes. She said, where the file goes from there, I do not know. She goes, but getting the file from the phone call to the staff sergeant's desk, she goes, it is of the utmost priority if that call comes in.
I wonder if it goes to Bigelow Industries.
I don't think so. This goes straight to the military. Straight to the military.
Now, bringing up disclosure, I've said it, and I always say it. I think disclosure, one, came out with Reagan, and two, came out with the flyover of the White House in 1952. I think that's really where your disclosure came from, or started.
Then why is there a big frenzy going on the internet, especially like on Facebook and all that stuff? People thinking that, it's going to be a couple of weeks out or a month out, and it's going to be this massive disclosure, and it's a big frenzy, and people are trying to get their books out as fast as they can, to rake in a little bit of cash.
Can I answer that, Gary? Because that actually leads to a real interesting conversation that I had on Twitter today, speaking of social media, about this something similar. Okay, the disclosure movement, what do we need from it? Those who have experienced it already know it's there, number one.
Right.
Number two, why do we always take the stories that people give and not believe them? We've had some very high profile people come out and say this phenomenon is real. Okay? If you want to know about disclosure, one only has to look. You don't have to look at MUFON. You don't have to look at the To the Stars Academy. All you have to do is watch the Robert Bigelow story on 60 Minutes from May of 2017. Now, here's a gentleman who is involved. If you do your research on him, he's involved in black projects. He's involved in the UFO phenomena. He's got Harry Reid, the former Nevada senator, in his back pocket with this topic. Okay? You look at that, and Bigelow basically comes out, and you can put it on YouTube. Just put Robert Bigelow UFO 60 Minutes. It comes up. It's very easy to find. But for anybody who questions disclosure, Bigelow made it.
Yeah.
Okay? But we don't want to believe Bigelow. We don't want to believe John Podesta. The minute you mention John Podesta, all of a sudden you got people talking about this crap with Pedogate, and he's a pedophile, and he's this, and he's that. He sent out a tweet when he left the Obama's office to run Hillary Clinton's campaign. He said, sadly, my biggest regret of 2014 was not securing the hashtag disclosure files on UFOs. Hashtag the truth is still out there. This is the highest paid civilian in the United States government saying the UFO phenomena is real. I cannot get the files out. Bigelow going on 60 Minutes. Okay, what Ronald Reagan said at the UN. We've already had everything that everybody needs, but our society has become so bloody fickle that all we want to do is complain. Oh, that's BS. That's BS. I'm the armchair UFO quarterback sitting in front of my computer. I know that's BS. Really? Come on. Wake up. Okay? Wake up.
Here's the thing, too. They want hard evidence. What about the $22 million that the U.S. government gave Bigelow Industries for UFO research? That's documented. It's not conspiracy. It's not. You can look it up.
That's very true. That's very true. But the point is, there has been enough large-named profile people coming out saying this phenomenon is real. Okay? And that's the problem that we have, is and this is where I say all the time on the show, Society is not ready for this topic. The media, up until the To the Stars Academy, did not take this topic seriously. All right? The public wants to shoot down everything involved with it. They have an excuse. Oh, you can't believe Bigelow, or you can't believe Tom DeLonge, or you can't believe Stephen Greer, or you can't believe this person or that person, right? Mm-hmm. We're our own worst enemy when it comes to this topic. Now, do I think disclosure is here? No, I think everybody has their own disclosure. I've had my own experiences to know this phenomenon is real. But to those who are out there trying to figure it out, if they did their homework and they realized it, the biggest mistake, let me put it this way, the biggest mistake that anybody questioning the UFO field has made is not following that Robert Bigelow 60 Minutes interview. And then if you're still questioning Bigelow and Bigelow Industries and Bigelow Aerospace in regards to all of that, look up the man's history. Look at the millions that he has spent or received in regards to this phenomena. Look up the Skinwalker Ranch. Look up the UFO websites that he bought. Look up the fact that for a long time, Bigelow Aerospace was the only company that you could call if you were part of the FAA and witness strange phenomenon in the sky. This is the man who is the godfather of ufology, and the entire United States and the entire world has dismissed him. He went on 60 Minutes and said, I know this phenomenon is real. You do not have to go to space to see UFOs and extraterrestrials. They are already here. The stupid part about it is he caught the reporter off guard with that, and she did not press him on that topic. All right? So, what she should have said is, where can we find these extraterrestrials? Press him. That was the most important 7 minutes of television in the last 30 years on this phenomena, and everybody washed their eyes out in it. Okay?
I wonder if people have actually considered the ramifications.
What was that, Keith?
And so I wonder if people have actually even considered the actual ramifications of what would happen if all of a sudden in today's world it was revealed that aliens were in fact here en masse. Can you picture what would happen to the economy globally?
Keith, it's not just that, okay? I think they know, okay? You have to look at it, guys. And this is the way I look at it. And I could be completely wrong, okay? But the way I look at it is this. They don't care about the generations who are 40 years old and up. The reason why is our generations are still the majority of religion or religious. Our generations are the majority of people who are agnostic or atheist. The majority of our generations, we're still a five senses type of crew where we don't want to believe that there is anything else up there or out there, whether it's psychic phenomena, intuition, whatever it could be. All right? It's the younger generations, Cooper's kids, my kids, anybody, Keith, your kids, okay, whoever has children who are stepping away from mainstream thinking that we are used to, who are now pushing the envelope, trying to find their own spirituality, their own path, their own guidelines. They are open. They are more engaged in believing about these types of phenomena, whether it's psychic ability, whether it's UFOs, whether it's Bigfoot. You don't have a lot of 18, 19, 20-year-olds who you could say, hey, do you believe in UFOs? You don't have a lot of them that say no. You don't. I look at my nieces and nephews. I say, do you believe in UFOs? Yeah, I do. Well, have you seen one? No. Well, why do you believe? Because there's got to be something more out there. Look how big the universe is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's just it. Ironically, when you look at the psychic world, I can tell you from practical experience, the majority of people I end up talking to in that field are in their 40s. They're in their mid 40s to mid 50s is where the majority of them come from.
That's because a lot of them have had that awakening, okay? And it's shifted their entire progress and everything. I look at myself. I was 38 years old when I had my first awakening. When I had my UFO awakening and ran into my first extraterrestrial, I was 40. Right?
I wish I'd been at least that old. I started a little earlier than you did.
But that's the idea about it, Gary, is we already know, like getting back to the original fact, we already know the high-profile people have already said, like, give me an example. John Alexander, who has been one of Robert Bigelow's right-hand men, and if you've ever investigated this private group called the Aviary, okay, he came on my show, and we were talking about Skinwalker Ranch. And he said on my show, everything you have heard about what happened at Skinwalker Ranch is true. I said, John, did you see any of this? He goes, I did not see a thing. He goes, but I know the people who did, and everything you've heard is true. All right? Yet you talk to anybody who's the armchair quarterback researcher who sits on their computer and Googles everything, they don't believe it. They think it's Skinwalker Ranch is full of crap, that there's nothing happening there. Why would he come out and say it's true? What's wrong? Why don't we want to believe when these people who are in the know come out? The reason why is it's easy to say there's an agenda behind it. Okay? No. An agenda is something like the To the Stars Academy, who refuses to talk to the media or certain portions of the media. Okay? Space Out Radio, Night Dreams Talk Radio. You'll never have somebody from To the Stars Academy on in the near future. Doesn't matter how many times you ask their press person, they're not coming on. That's controlling a narrative. When you have people like Bigelow or John Alexander or John Podesta coming out and saying this phenomenon is totally 100% real, there's your proof. We are just too stupid to think about it because, A, the mainstream media does not want to cover these topics, okay? And they were caught off guard with their pants down when the To the Stars Academy came out and that New York Times article came out in December of 2017, okay? They were caught off guard. And that's the problem that we have, is because the mainstream media refuses to jump on board with this, okay? That Bigelow thing, if that happened, say, about Microsoft or about Apple, that story would have been viral for months. But because Bigelow comes out and talks about UFOs, it's buried. All right? Every media outlet would have jumped on that topic if it was about something that was five senses or something that is going on today with a major company. But because it was UFOs, it didn't get covered. And that's why I encourage everybody, go on YouTube, go look up Robert Bigelow, 60 Minutes, UFOs. And if you still have any disbelief on that, study who Robert Bigelow is, because he is the number one man in the world when it comes to UFOs, and he is the one we should be paying attention to.
But why, Dave, and I'm not going to mention people's names or anything, but I've noticed even a couple of my friends, I've been overwhelmed with people trying to get on my show here in the last couple of weeks in a big frenzy lately. So assured that there's going to be government papers here, proof. We already know that there's UFOs. If a person doesn't believe there's UFOs and the world is flat, but I'm just saying there's a big frenzy like I have never seen, and it's gotten crazy.
Well, that's because the UFO phenomena is the hot topic. Okay, when you have people, whether you love them or hate them, and I'll be honest with you, I'll go on record and say I'm not a fan of Tucker Carlson, but there's a gentleman who has a news reputation at Fox who refuses to drop the story. Okay? And that's exactly what it is.
when you refuse to drop the story and you're not playing the X-Files theme song or Star Wars or Star Trek or Twilight Zone,
right?
Okay, you're taking the topic seriously, people are going to listen. All right, people are going to say there is something that we should attach ourselves to. Okay, because the proof is in the pudding. Whether it's the $22 million, whether it's the fact that the government is finally admitting this, there is a lot of proof going on there that this phenomenon is existing and that the United States government is taking it very, very seriously. All right, but you got to realize it all comes down to the agenda too, my friend. Because let's face it, if the real truth came out about some of these rumors that we think of, okay, that aliens were found alive at Roswell and San Augustine, that there was some sort of craft found at Kecksburg, that Shag Harbor incident in Nova Scotia that involved both the Canadian and United States Navy happened, and there was a craft underwater, okay? The fact that Travis Walton is real. People want to hear it. People want to know, and they are taking it seriously. Because of that New York Times article, it's probably one of the most important articles that has happened in a long time. And that's why we're all of a sudden seeing this. And that's why, if you look at it, there is a lot of people out there right now who are engaged in this phenomenon. It interests them. There's a reason why paranormal radio is at its highest peak of listenership at any time outside of Art Bell's Coast to Coast days, is because of the popularity of the subject.
But have you noticed, Dave? I get a lot of people on when they talk about UFOs and aliens, the grays. Again, I'm going to use the magic word, orbs and friendly and here to protect mankind. I really don't. I don't believe that because again, I'm going back when I talked to Reagan when he Star Wars when he said it was to for out there. And then my mind kind of, that's been sitting in my mind for many years. But then,
rest assured, the off-orbiters are not here to protect mankind.
No. Oh yeah, no. And then you look at things like a couple of years ago off the Nimitz, the UFO, the fighters. And then you have the Secretary of the Air Force who is graduating cadets, mentioning like our next war won't be a ground war, it'll be in space. And then about 2 months later, the president all of a sudden comes up and starts talking about, well, we need to create a space force, which is, I already know it's there. But, and go on all about this stuff. I'm just wondering, are they trying to prepare us for something dark and gray? I don't know.
No, green.
But I don't think they're out here trying to protect mankind. I don't, like we eat everything. Like I say on my show all the time, we eat everything on this planet virtually, right? We eat bugs, we eat cows, we eat deer, we eat, whatever, right? How do we know that we're not any more than that burger?
I'm going to add a couple things here too, Gary. You say people are storming you recently in the last couple of weeks. I'm going to tell you, based on reports, UFO sightings are on the rise since the beginning of this year. I think that's one factor. Second factor, you've got a Harvard scientist that came out talking about Mauna Loa, a Harvard scientist coming out talking about possible alien and UFOs. So, you've got throw in the Blue Book TV series that's come out for good measure. You've got a lot more eyes on UFOs for 2019.
Well, Peter Davenport has had more reports than ever. He's on our show every week for about a half an hour. But one thing I want to say is he's been getting reports, which he hasn't been getting before, of people claiming to see aliens walking. I had a couple months back a police sergeant from Oregon's biggest city want to come on my show. in Tillamook, Oregon last year. Him and his wife were out there camping near Tillamook, I should say, and he claimed he saw 2 aliens. And then, he motions to his wife. His wife turns around, sees him, and poof, they were gone. Mm-hmm. Then, a week later, Peter Davenport gets reports of other people, another one in Oregon, matter of fact, about 100 miles away from there, where they saw aliens on the ground, and then across the country. So there's been a big sighting of creatures that we don't know what they are being reported. Now, is that people's imagination, or is it frenzy, or are we being visited and they're checking us out more?
Well, I mean, from a xeno-socioeconomic standpoint, this is an extremely exciting time, which is why there's an increase in the visitations. And the ramifications of mankind's perpetual bombardment of negativity into the neural net is having an impact on the planet that mankind is not equipped to deal with yet. And they haven't technologically advanced far enough to register it properly.
I agree with that 100%.
So where do you see us in the next 5 years?
A lot of it, mankind now, especially some of the lead scientists and what have you, know of what's happening. They're just not doing anything with it.
Why not?
Maybe they can't.
Well, in my opinion, in one case in particular, it's just blatant stupidity. Okay. Point in fact, and you can go and look this one up on the net. There's a neat little island in the Canaries by the name of Guillermo that when it breaks, I can't tell you when it'll break, but I can tell you that the scientists already know when it does, it's going to create a tsunami that runs approximately from the middle of the east coast of Argentina to the St. Lawrence Seaway. They know it's going to happen, and they're not doing a thing to break it up. But unless they split that island up deliberately, when it comes apart, you're looking at 3 tsunamis that are going to cause a death toll that mankind is not going to be equipped to handle. But the off-worlders touching down on Earth and being seen periodically, showing up. I mean, heck, back in 2014, I think it was, 2014, at the Experiencer Speak Conference, we actually had a couple literally materialize in the lobby and dematerialize on the way back out.
And that's happened. I think, wasn't it? It might have been Dave that was talking about that too. At some of these UFO symposiums that got visited.
Yeah. And it is happening more and more frequently.
So of all the ones visiting us right now, which ones do we have to worry about the most?
Humans.
Huh? Well, I agree with that. But as far as the awful rulers,
if you don't pick a fight with them, none of them.
Okay.
How about
if you pick a fight with them, any one of them.
How about if we decide to shoot at them?
Well, don't shoot first and then say, "Are you friendly?" Because they're not at that point.
No.
Yeah, but that's our human nature, isn't it?
That is not. This is why I keep telling people that is not human nature.
Sure, military.
Human nature is to be socially acceptable, to be actually communicative with each other.
No, not military-wise.
Okay, that is human training.
Oh, that's fear of the unknown.
Nature.
That's fear of not wanting to accept the fact that there's other stuff out there. Again, the fear of the unknown, and in some cases, religious training.
And that being said, quite often. And that being said, you take the Surzosians, for instance, the 7.5 to 8.5 foot reptilian. You shoot one of them, the odds are with the guns that mankind has, all you're going to do is kill somebody else in the crowd because it'll bounce off their armor.
Right. All right. Moving along. Steve, what's your next question?
That was awesome, because I am actually, you guys understand, I'm the least knowledgeable when it comes to aliens and what's unknown out in the universe. So you guys have answered a lot of my questions that I even had, and I really appreciate that. And I think before I ask my last question, I think I would say that I would ask that, is the government only hiding because they know we have no chance? Do you think that that's the reason why they aren't giving us the information, why they aren't fully disclosing? And the few leaks that we do get, when they tie those leaks up, it's because they know that if the entire population found out that there was such a thing as aliens from another side of the galaxy coming here and visiting this planet, what would it do to the current population in the world? Yeah, the young people are going to probably be accepting, but anybody my age and over is probably going to be terrified and want to defend themselves, because, like you say, we are trained to defend ourselves. So how do we get past that as a society to realize, hey, these people, they might come here and they might offer us some knowledge that we are seeking?
Well, there's two factors to that. One, the way to counteract that problem is, quite frankly, get to know your neighbor. And I know that sounds really redundant, I said it already, but the primary reason the governments are not going to come right out and say, okay, yes, we've been hiding this for the last 50 years, or, in all fairness, 150 years, but if they were to come out and say it, number one, mankind, the government or the society will basically buckle, because what little faith that mankind has in the government will collapse overnight.
You're right.
At the same time, you guys say,
I just want to interject one thing. Let's say a comet was coming, an asteroid was coming towards Earth, and the government knew about it for 3 weeks or 2 weeks, or depending on when they find it. They know it's going to take out 3/4 of the population of this planet, and then the other part is going to die off within a certain period of time. Do you think they're going to sit there and announce, oh, we're going to be hit, and, kiss your ass goodbye? They're not going to say that, okay? The same way, if we all of a sudden, this is not even real. Let's say we were going to be invaded, for example, by aliens to take over this planet or whatever. You think they're going to tell you that? They're not going to say, hey, we've been fighting up in space already with aliens. We're losing the war. They're going to do something's going to happen. They're not going to tell us anything. It's the same way, like exactly. I said, if an asteroid comes, they're not going to tell you till it hits.
And that's why I don't see them ever completely telling us the truth. And that's something we're all going to have to continue preaching, because, the only way we can get the word out there, and Eric is the one that changed my mind. Eric, and a few experiences throughout life that I tried to deny, that he made me see, changed my mind. So the only way I see it occurring where we get full disclosure is if we just get the word out and more people realize that we're telling the truth.
Now, hey, Eric, we need to take a break in 2 minutes because I really got to go pee.
Okay.
So we set up our break.
I believe that falls under the TMI thingy.
It does.
Oh,
it
baby.
does. And I just lost my train of thought. But I gotta say real quick too, Trip is bringing up a good point. Asteroids are way different than aliens. After time, we'll just consider them as immigrants, and they'll be doing farm work for us. But yeah. Okay, let's go ahead and take a break. And folks, when we come back, we will continue in our last hour, and I think we'll keep on going with aliens.
Okay, about a 2-minute break?
A 2-minute break.
Okay.
Okay.
Get your coffee.
Like the
You can advertise your business on Night Dreams Talk Radio, and you will be heard worldwide. Why not contact us at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com. Eric Cooper, S4 Radio, on Night Dreams Talk Radio Network, gets deep into the paranormal.
Welcome back to S4. Tonight's our February Roundtable. Hope you all enjoying the show. We got off to a real rocky start. The first hour talking politics, which is why we really do try to stay away from politics. So I hope you're enjoying the show. Anyway, we're back to aliens. One of our favorite topics for many of our listeners. And I want to kick off this last hour with, there's a difference between abductees and contactees. Contactees are the ones that have a wonderful experience. They're the ones that, I don't like using the term, but space brothers comes to mind. And everything is love and light and everything is wonderful. And then you got the abductees. They're the ones being taken against their will, having scientific experiments done to them, medical experiments, social experiments, and they don't have a good time. And I think the new age is kind of a problem with the whole everything's peace and love, and not all aliens are about peace and love per se.
Not in all the new age stuff.
Right, exactly. And we're in an age of awakening. I would agree with that. But yeah, just be careful what you wish for. You'd be surprised how many people I hear say, "I wish I could meet an alien." No, really, you don't.
Yeah, the ones that confuse me are the ones that do that, and they go and they follow it up with, "I don't care which alien. I just want to have an alien encounter."
Right.
I would prefer E.T. to Predator, just saying.
Right.
Oh, Predators are nice. Once you get to know them.
You know, what always pops into my mind is Independence Day, the ones that are up on top of the skyscraper going, "Welcome, aliens." And then they get blown away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ironic part is, I mean, I like that show from one aspect. They did do a good job on the containment field and on the containment setup in Area 51. They just got the alien wrong.
Right.
You know, but the thing I get a kick out of is if they were actually going to invade, as you well know, as you mentioned earlier, the reality is one EMP pulse and this planet's dead in the water.
Mm-hmm. Which, I'm going to say, is that good or is that bad? I don't think it's really a bad thing for the human race to get thrown back into the Dark Ages.
Well, the Dark Ages, being as I remember them, was not a good time to be. However, getting people off of some of the technology and getting them to talk to each other again would be extremely advantageous.
Exactly. And, you know, I loved your rant, Gary, the other day, because you hit
Thank
on you hit on excellent key points. And I run a community group, the Concrete Upriver Group, as any local listeners know. And I'm seen as the asshole because I keep politics and I keep religion out of the group for a reason. As you saw in the first hour of the show tonight, talking politics just doesn't work. It creates chaos. And I push preparedness. And I've been accused of being a fearmonger. Oh my God, you're just making people scared. No, don't be scared. Be prepared. You know, have a plan. And within that plan, like you said on your rant, Gary, you keep your water, keep your food. And if there's an EMP pulse, you're not going to have enough food, which is a key reason to know your neighbors. Like you said, Keith.
Well, yeah.
I'm going to say with that, though, know your neighbors. Know who's going to be a threat. Your neighbor right now might seem like a perfectly nice person, but going 3 days without food and human nature what it is, they might not be so nice.
And that part I will absolutely agree with.
I got a test you guys can do. Let's pretend there's a power outage permanently, okay? From whatever, right? And you were lucky enough to have a surviving generator, and you're smart enough or dumb enough to start it up. How long do you think it's going to take before you have people coming to your place that you don't want?
About 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Or sooner.
Or less.
And so, you know, I believe in the Second Amendment to a degree. I'm not a stockpiler of weapons because of a corrupt government. Because if there's a corrupt government, no amount of weapons is going to protect you from that. Not when they come up to your house with an up-armored Humvee with heavy weapons. But what you need to have weapons for is that scenario. And you don't need 200 guns. You only need 2 or 3. What you need to stockpile up on is ammunition.
Either that or you need to know how to make it.
Well, yeah,
but
but you know
personally, I
what?
find it more advantageous to figure out how to make a fire without turning it into a block fire.
And Trippin brings up, generators won't last longer than a month. And you know what? Less than that, because how much gas can you stockpile?
Well, there are solar-powered ones now, so they'll last a little longer.
Right.
But the point is still essentially the same. They do have a certain amount of time in which point they will break down.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, all a generator will do is postpone the inevitable.
Yeah. And hopefully,
this is why in my opinion, your best move is figure out and make sure you know how to get a fire started. And if you don't know how to hunt, make dang certain you've got friends that do.
Well, and that's where knowing your neighbor comes in handy. Because if you have neighbors that you know are trustworthy, find out who's got what skill. Who's a nurse? Who's an EMT? They're going to be your medical. Who's good at security? They're obviously going to be your security. Who's a carpenter? Who's an electrician? Who's a mechanic? These are the ones you're going to want, start working as a community.
Yeah. Not only that, they're the valuable ones. They're the ones that are going to live because people need them.
Yeah.
So it's good to get your own training.
Exactly.
Well, the fact of the matter is, it doesn't matter how old you are, you can learn new things. The reality of it is far more frightening when you realize that just because there are a number of other races that are more technologically advanced does not mean that socially or spiritually speaking they're any better off.
Mm-hmm.
If they were better off, they wouldn't have 3 galactic wars going on inside our sector right now. One of which is a civil war.
Right.
What chance do we have as human beings, though, if there's galactic wars going on and they come to Earth, EMP us? How long will we survive if they take over, or will we just become cattle?
Well, it depends on the reason for them taking the planet. If they're taking it as a foothold and they just want to settle in on it, deal with it. You'll live. If they're here to wipe out the race, you're already dead before the war starts. And if they're here to enslave the race, you're already shipped out before you realize it happened.
So none of our diplomatics or military will help anyway, right?
The natural diplomatic approach is, let's wait and see what they do. This seems to be the issue. And the military, much as I respect the Terran military, it hasn't got a snowball's prayer, and guess where, of going up against the armaments that these guys have.
Right.
I mean, you take a look at let's go back to World War II. I'm sure they've got bigger guns now, but, well, I know they've got a rail gun, which really got me in trouble the other day, but they've only got one, and you have to wait for the plan to move into position for it to actually be of any use.
Mm-hmm.
But you take a look at the main gun on the consortium's flagship. You take the Titanic, you turn it broadside and float it down the middle of the barrel. You've still got room to maneuver. Now, there is nothing on Earth that will stop that kind of firepower.
No. In fact, we've talked about that on the show before.
Yeah. The other thing that people are forgetting is there's a neat little race underground that has the capacity to drop a city out from underneath mankind.
Right.
With dangerous precision.
That's not the trolls either, is it?
No. It's what humans came to call dwarves.
That's right.
They are very real.
That's right.
And they are very capable.
And that's some of the booms and the tremors that the humans are feeling, that you hear reports of here and there.
Yes. The funny thing is, there's another race down there that takes what mankind calls mythical magic. And you see it on movies all the time. These guys don't see it on movies, they use it.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why I don't bother looking at the possibility of invasion, because it's pointless.
The reason I ever contacted Eric Cooper was because my major experience in life was right here in the Cascade Mountains, and me and my children were camping one night, and needless to say, long story short, an orb type unit came out of the woods. It was 8 feet in the air, slowly blinking, and came towards us. I shot it twice, and it was there. It stayed there and kind of slowly backed off and disappeared. And that's when I contacted Eric Cooper, and what made me start believing in all of this.
Well, I presume you didn't ask if it was friendly.
I wasn't going to ask. It was coming towards the kids, and it was about 3 a.m. It was pitch black. We had a campfire going. And at first I thought, it was a strobe light from a hiker or something coming through the woods, but no, it slowly came towards us. So they screamed out to me, and I went down. I told it to stop quite a few times. It did not. So I fired 2 .40 caliber rounds right at the center of the light, and it turned around and slowly drifted back into the woods and disappeared.
Well, in all fairness to them, I understand why you did. In all fairness to them, they probably didn't understand what you said.
Right.
They probably didn't, and that's what I thought about. And I never put 2 and 2 together. I had no idea what it was until I talked to Eric, and he told me what it was, and it made perfect sense. So I know firsthand knowledge that our weapons won't have anything to do.
Eric, what was it?
That would be a Keith answer.
You did say an 8 foot in diameter, right?
No,
8 foot in the air.
It was about 8 feet, 8 feet in the air.
How big was it? And do you remember how big the orb was?
It was, let's say, the size of about a volleyball.
Oh, okay. You're dealing with geckos. They're a reptilian race, about 6 inches tall. They literally look like a gecko. Now, that being said, the bullets wouldn't even bother penetrating their hull. That's actually a ship you were looking at. They weren't there for abduction, by the way.
Say that again.
A little hard for a 60. I said they weren't there to try and take the kids. They were curious.
Right.
Understood. That was my first reaction was like, when they didn't stop, when I said stop, it proved to me right there that rounds do not penetrate their armor.
But why couldn't that have been a drone from a UFO?
It could have been. It just, quite frankly, in my experience, probably wasn't. If it were a drone, it wouldn't have stopped.
Right. And that was my answer to Steve. That was my answer to Steve, is that was alien. It definitely wasn't Bigfoot. It wasn't anything else, and it wasn't government, because the government would have kept on going.
But if it's an alien drone, maybe it has senses. Maybe it has intelligence. Maybe it has some being where, it recognized you fired upon it.
Curiosity, you do realize a drone, by definition, means it's got no intelligence. That's a robot. That's a remote control.
Okay, well, let's talk about a non-remote control. Something from an alien ship that maybe does have intelligence, okay? And it was checking them out. It's simple as that.
That's why I said the geckoids. In other words, it was a manned ship. Could it technically have been a drone? Certainly.
It made no sound, and it blinked about every 3 seconds. Bright white light.
Yeah.
Now, can I ask a question here? Dave, do you have in Canada, are you getting these type of reports?
I have not heard of any like that, and usually when that kind of weird and strange stuff happens, I go to Keith.
Yeah.
Because he's just peak woo enough for me to believe it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you got to realize, there is so much out there that we don't know. I mean, I have seen orbs. I haven't seen, what Steve has seen in the forest. And Steve, I could just imagine what I would be like with my children around and having that happen. I think you did the right thing in doing what you did there. But in regards to the entire experience and trying to figure out what is truly up with it, God, that's hard to say. I mean, I've never heard of Keith talk about the geckoids before out of the probably 70 or 80 conversations we've had on Space Out Radio over the years. But I mean, it happens, and it's all in how we deal with it. But and Steve, I'm not, please, when I say this, I'm not trying to put you down, but for a lot of people out there, they would have Steve's reaction, and that is, if you're armed and prepared to protect yourself, which I highly suggest for anybody going in the forest, because you don't know what is around animal-wise. Like, for instance, where I live, I mean, we have grizzly bears, we have black bears, we have cougars, we have moose, we have...
We never shoot a grizzly bear with a 45. He'll just get annoyed.
The whole point that I'm getting at is you have to go into the forest with protection and know what the possibilities are. You're not preparing for something like an orb that flies within 8 feet of you and trying to figure out what to do with it. And especially if you're a first-time experiencer like Steve is, I mean, I think Steve did the exact same thing.
He did the only rational thing possible.
Exactly.
See, to be clear, though, Dave, when you and I first started talking, we're going back, 3 years now?
Oh, goodness.
We got into a discussion about the various different reptilian races that were out there. But we don't talk about the geckoids very much because they're not involved in abductions. Let's face it, they're only 6 inches tall.
So what what are the geckoids doing here? What is their main function?
Oh, that's the easy part. Socioeconomic exploration and flora and fauna research.
Okay. And that would explain why they'd be in the Cascades.
Yeah, because, I mean, let's face it, you've got a wide variety of different things up there.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Many different reptilian races besides the geckoids as well.
After the research and talking with gentlemen like yourselves, I don't think I would react the same way, but I think I kind of make the point that I think as a society right now, even if they were peaceful and they came down here, the first thing, you guys are right, we would shoot because, I mean, firsthand experience, I shot. So, yeah,
well,
definitely right about the violence part.
No, but
yeah, my guess is you don't usually shoot at people you don't know exactly who they are.
And I would have to say, though, I have to add to that, Steve, because if you were by yourself, you probably wouldn't have shot. You would have checked it out. But because they were going towards your kids,
Absolutely.
that is the whole. That changes the whole perspective.
That was the number one reason, was because of the kids. If the kids hadn't been there, you're darn right. I would have wanted to find out what that was.
Right.
You might have ended up pulling a Travis Walton.
Right.
Getting way too close and running into your own problems.
Yeah.
Well, because humans are curious by nature as well.
Exactly.
That they are.
But our curiosity takes a back seat when our children are threatened.
Absolutely.
Or what we perceive as being threatened, whether they're actually threatened or not. If there's a perception of a threat, then you're going to react.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But without dependence, we like to use the pointy stick.
Exactly. And I wish Joe was here. Where's Joe? See, that's the thing. We go to EMP, we go to the pointy stick, because you're not gonna have bullets forever, but you're gonna have a pointy stick forever.
Yeah. Pointy stick in the club, can't beat them.
Exactly.
Well, you can beat them with the club.
Well, that too.
Well, technically, you can beat them with the pointy stick too. It's just not as effective.
The geckoids, we could just rip their tails off. It'll take them a while to grow back.
Bad news. They don't have them.
Damn it.
So, Cole.
Yes.
What is your next question?
Well, I have just started watching the X-Files for the first time.
Uh-huh.
Well, you're a little behind schedule.
Well,
better late than never.
he doesn't come to Canada. Like, we're finally getting 90s shows. So Friends just started, though. But I'm very curious as to who fed these cases to, what's his name, Chris Carter.
Chris Carter? I don't know who fed him, but I do know he's in the know.
Yeah, as the FBI.
How far?
How far? Up
Yeah.
to about his armpits.
That bad, eh?
Or that good, depending on who you talk to.
Yeah, I guess if you're him, it's pretty good right now, because, like, he's still making money.
Yeah,
Like,
but
he is one of three producers that actually knows what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
One of three in the States. There's a fourth one over in Europe, and I forget what his name is. But Carter does know what he's talking about.
You know what? The other one. I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago. I think Stranger Things is really interesting too, because when you look at the Upside Down, it's very similar to Other Dimensions.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And the creatures that are in
Stranger
them.
Things is well done. I don't know who the producer is for that one.
Saffer Brothers.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
And I can't wait for season 3 to come out in May. I think it is.
Oh, is that when it comes out? Yeah, I've already watched the rest of it.
Yep.
I do know that Spielberg and Lucas both know what's going on.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. Look at Close Encounters of a Third Kind, for example.
Yeah. That is the best rendition, bar none, of the Greys that I've ever seen.
Now, I've got a question for you. Batteries not included. Have you ever seen that one?
are real. Yeah.
So which race
that
is
race
that?
exists.
What race is it? And are they robotic?
And they are. Remember I mentioned quite some time back we were talking about a race called the Mechanoids? They're not as cuddly and fuzzy as the batteries not included would have you believe.
Okay.
If those guys and those are it's that race that caused the Techlex to head this direction. And for the new listeners, the Techlex are the 3.5 to 4.5 foot raptor-like reptilians.
Damn them.
Yeah, they came because they were looking for resources to protect their own planet.
And what's I love the episode we did on crop circles a while back because we brought up some cool points about crop circles being markers for where resources on this planet might be.
Yeah. Or landmarks for a new direction. I was showing one that was literally a jump point.
Mm-hmm. So, I've got a question. What are the pyramids for?
The pyramids are quite literally power generators. They were originally designed to pull up quantum energy and broadcast it.
So they're signal beacons, basically.
No, not. I mean, they can be used as a signal beacon, but they literally, it's more like a way station, if you will, because they tap straight into the magnetic field of the planet, and then pump it on a direct line into orbit.
Okay. What are you going to add, Gary?
Okay, well, I just recently, this past week, had Stephen Myers on, and he has an idea, and he has videos out that, like the Great Pyramid and all that stuff, was not, to do whatever it is to the cosmos or whatever. His feeling is that it was created as a major, water pump, to pump water, to supply water for irrigation. And just from the way the chambers are made and everything else, and he really has a good video on it. Actually, 2 videos on it, and a lot of documentation. And if you really watch it and read his book about it, it makes you kind of sway your mind that the way the pyramids, the chambers were made, and all that stuff, it does make sense. It could have been to use it for pumping water.
But can I ask a question? And it may be stupid, and I don't mean it to be, but I'm actually wondering, aren't the pyramids in a desert? Or is that why they're in a desert now?
It's in a desert, but at that time when they were there was they built canals.
They used to call it the Sahara Forest.
They had canals going up to the pyramids. And actually even shows, he even has how they actually built the pyramids, how the technology, how they actually barged the big blocks up to the site to build it. And it's rather intriguing, and it's something you guys might want to check into. It's the Pump Foundation, Stephen Myers. And I'm telling you, after I watched the video and had him on the show and read his book, it just changed my mind about the pyramids.
Well, the neat thing with the pyramids is if you tap into the magnetic field, you can actually pull water without a problem because you create a null field around it, and the water will be automatically pulled up.
And with
the other thing that is really neat, if you take a look at the energy flow around it, is you take a look at the hieroglyphs.
Right.
Compare the layout of the hieroglyphs to each other in the same way that you look at a motherboard.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. I want to bring up real quick Kayla's point. When you're talking pyramids, there's pyramids around the world. I could see water being an issue, in the Great Pyramids in the desert. But it's also has been shown through, I won't say archives, but through what is it, water erosion and whatnot. There was water in the desert before it became a desert, obviously.
Oh yeah, I mean there's one pyramid we can safely say is not using for a water pump. It's actually bigger than the Pyramid of Giza, but it's somewhere, if I recall correctly, in the South Pacific Ocean. It just happens to be totally submerged.
Right.
And then, of course, you go to the odd ones, which are the step pyramids in Guatemala and what have you. Right.
Well, then you
But no, I got a kick out of it when it dawned on me that we were looking at circuit boards on the insides of those pyramids.
They look like it.
So did humans actually build the pyramids, or like actually build? Like, I mean, like, do the labor?
Yeah. And that being said, the answer is yes.
Okay.
They didn't design them.
Well, yeah. I kind of figured that. The one that weirds me out over there is the Sphinx, and I just read up about this a little bit. I didn't get too in-depth into it, but the fact that it doesn't actually match the story for what they tell you in Egypt.
No, because it's 10,000 years older than the pyramids are.
Yeah, and it doesn't actually match the face that they say who it is.
No. And that's even taking into consideration the fact it was defaced.
Yeah, how many times did we build it?
It was underwater too for a long period of time that they come to the conclusion.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that was my point with bringing up that the pyramids weren't always, or the desert wasn't always desert, going by the Sphinx.
Yeah, it was submerged.
Mm-hmm.
Even 3,000 years ago, northern Africa, Egypt was a floodplain.
Yeah.
Yeah, Egypt was a floodplain. The Sahara was a forest.
Which is it's kind of cool because Iraq, the farmers in Iraq actually still use the irrigation system. And
well, yeah, it was well designed.
What's interesting to watch, because the tower that we were on in Balad overlooked a field that was completely irrigation, irrigation canals. And they had dam one up. They would release the dam on another one, and they could control and regulate the water flow based on various dams. Interesting to watch. Primitive but effective.
Yes, but sometimes the primitive things work better and more efficiently than the modern ones.
They do. So moving along.
Do you gentlemen know then who created the pyramids? What race created the pyramids?
Do we know which race did?
Yeah, maybe not so specific, but do we know approximately where these races came from that created these, and did they enslave the humans that were set forth to build them?
Enslave? No. Well, that's not entirely correct. What they did was they took over. See, the race that actually, the leaders that actually had control of it, they took over because of the fact that the Egyptians at the time were, frankly, they were faltering. It was more of a rescue mission than anything else. So, called it enslavement. When they started it, where the problem was it was a rescue mission from the off-worlders to get the Egyptian people some way of surviving where they were. It wasn't until after they left, where the pharaohs took over, that it became the nightmare that it was.
Well, Eric, can I say something? The Sphinx, from everything I've been reading recently, and I've been putting a lot of energy into it, kind of because of the wear marks on the back of the Sphinx, They have come to the conclusion that wasn't the sand, it was caused from the ocean. That puts it before mankind. So, does you guys have any thoughts about that?
Well, yeah, that's why I said the Sphinx itself was actually built about 10,000 years before the pyramids were.
So who created the Sphinx?
And if you look at it, pardon?
So who created the Sphinx?
Oh, that's the easy part. The lichen.
Okay, and that makes sense.
And for those of you that don't know, which is probably a fair chunk, they come right out of Sirius.
Okay.
And I don't mean that funny little, phone app.
No, that's the Dog Star
Correct.
constellation.
Yeah.
And where did they go? I know they still come and visit occasionally, but
they came down. They got here, realized the problem, and decided they were going to try and help. Right. So yes, they did take over to start with, and they did have to use mankind's, the men in the local labor force. But then, let's face it, they were trying to build something for mankind.
Mm-hmm. And what's interesting too, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Capitol, the United States Capitol, if you look at all the different monuments we've got, are all centered around the Dog Star system.
Exactly.
Because we actually did a show on it, I think 2 years ago. I think it was about 2 years ago. On how our founding fathers were actually Masons and didn't worship per se, but knew about the Dog Star system.
Yeah. Well, this is why I tell people that, everybody talks about the fact the Germans had contact with the aliens during the Second World War.
Mm-hmm.
What they don't talk about is so did every other major superpower.
Yeah. And that's very much lost in history. Or not discussed in history.
Well, it's probably getting back there somewhere.
I read that there was there's a tribe somewhere in Africa, I believe, that has known about that constellation longer than modern man has.
Well, and not even just Africans, but there's Native American tribes that also have followed the Dog Star constellation.
There's also ones in Australia.
The Aborigines.
The Aborigines in the outback of Australia that know about it.
Yeah. So again, like I tell our listeners, you know what? You don't even have to listen. You don't have to believe what we talk about in S4. Do your own research. You can find the same information we do. But we've been researching this a long time.
Yeah, I just have a little problem with it. Like I told one chap, one of these days I should actually start researching this instead of living it.
Right.
This is why I pull a blank a lot of the time. When people go, "Have you read up on this?" I'm like, no.
Right.
Like me read? I don't think that's possible. Yeah.
All right, so we're coming.
Mankind has been visited for a lot longer than modern people realize.
Oh yeah, hands down. Hands down.
Hey, Eric, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Now, isn't 3 hours better than 2 hours?
Oh yeah, for sure. Because we can talk about a lot more. Minus the political upset in the first hour.
I'm sorry. You know how I am. You should have realized that from Facebook the other day.
Oh, I know it. I know it.
Okay, can I ask one more question, quick?
Of course.
And it does have to do with a political item, but it is not a political question. I don't want it to lead there.
No.
Okay. So, last week on S4, we talked about how Transformers and that show itself had really developed well with human history, bringing in Verdam.
Okay.
Does anyone else have a feeling that the whole wall thing could be something, maybe not for us only? Because that is a huge thing to build. You have to admit that. Like, that is a huge border to build a wall on.
Well, it is, and considering somewhat in Central America, it would make sense, because what's in Central America, if it decides to go rogue, that wall won't slow it down. Although, it'll slow it down a little, but not by much.
You might want to clarify that with what you mean by what's in South America. Like, is there some race there that we?
There are some lost races that are that are still alive on this planet today that will, quite frankly, either climb over that wall or walk through it.
Walk through it is more, the speed.
I'm thinking more like something to help them. Like
no,
alien race.
I'm going to say our administration is so ignorant they wouldn't. They're not here to help aliens, if that's what you're referring to.
Yeah, no. But they might be fearing something, because the reality is that what mankind knows is such a small amount about what's on this planet, and that you may well be right. They may well be trying to stop more than just humans getting across the border. I don't know what they're using in the way of building material yet, but unless they're putting a magnetic core in it with a fluctuating field on it, it isn't going to slow down what's over there.
I don't think they know what they're going to build yet. They keep changing back and forth between metal and concrete.
Couldn't that be a possibility that they would be putting that in?
Possibly. That's what I mean. That's why I said I don't know what they're planning on building with it, but I do know if they don't get the magnetic field right, and it's got to be on an oscillating field, it's got to be a fluctuating field. It can't be a static one.
Okay.
Because if it's static, they'll be able to match the phase on it and walk through it.
Okay, we're getting down to the last 17 minutes of the show. Dave, you've been quiet over there. Do you have anything do you have a question to throw in?
Yeah, I've been just listening into the intriguing conversation. Thank you. It's very rare that I get the opportunity that I do
Exactly.
get to do this. So, I do appreciate that. I've talked about this many a times on Spaced Out Radio, and at times I don't think the public gets it. So I'm going to bring this up.
Okay.
What should be the mainstream media's role going forward in regards to the topic of ufology?
I think report the facts for one.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start. It'd be a nice change.
I would say, though, that you have to report the facts in a way that doesn't cause panic. Because they have the ability to cause panic or not cause panic. There's two ways they could take that, and they have to be very delicate about the way they do it. I would like them to tell the truth, but at the same time, do it in a way that we're not all pointing at the skies with guns.
But you say that, and again, it's human nature. And what really irritates me, there's two movies that irritated the heck out of me, but they're fact. Independence Day 2, when we shot down the good aliens that were there to protect us from the bad, which obviously, it's Hollywood, so it came out good in the end. Probably wouldn't have in reality. And two,
yeah, it's pretty much a wash job,
right? And two, I can't Contact, in which that was I think it's Contact. I'm trying to remember the egg-shaped craft that came down, and the female scientist was there to translate. And again, we're shooting it down. And we're fortunate in that the race that we were dealing with knew the humans were going to do that and didn't retaliate. You know?
Very fortunate.
But that is a solid reality. Steve aside, you know, when you're protecting kids, you're going to shoot first. But again, the sad reality is our governments are going to shoot first without knowing anything or without protecting kids. And yeah, that's the human race.
And humans are very, contrary to popular belief, they are very protective of their kids.
Mm-hmm.
Like pretty much every sentient race, or every non-sentient race for that matter.
But you don't need kids involved. Just the fact that the fear factor, a lot of people will just shoot. Come on.
Yeah, exactly.
So you don't get kids involved?
I said you wouldn't need kids involved. The fear factor, the average person, if they saw something that scary, they would shoot. They wouldn't even...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're very right. Shoot first, ask questions later.
Well, and, you know, you said it before, Keith. You know, there's one race that is just completely grotesque and ugly, but the kindest, friendliest race you could ever encounter.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, they did a fabulous job on showing the, in the show Predator. They did a fabulous job on bringing that to life. You know, whoever was behind getting the hold of that picture did a great job on it, because that thing's real.
Well, minus the newest Predator, that one just sucked. If you haven't seen it yet, I wouldn't even waste the time or the effort. It just, yeah, it was awful.
No, I've seen 3 of them. I didn't know there was a 4th one out.
Yeah, there's a new one out, and
okay.
It's called The Predator. It's not called, you know, just Predator. And they try to redo it, and it was just no. It ruined it for me.
That bad, eh?
Yeah, that bad. So we're coming down to 12 minutes. Keith, where can we find your books, and how's your book tour going?
Well, the books are easy. If you contact me on Inner Voice Enterprises at yahoo.ca, I've got a new one coming out now, because I've already got Believe in Yourself and Follow Your Dreams, and now I'm coming out with Believe in Your Business and Follow Your Dreams. But much more directly, on the 9th of March, I'll be in Toronto doing a boot camp based on those 2 books, as well as doing private consultations for a few days. I'll be there I'm getting there on the 8th, and should be leaving on the 13th.
All right, excellent.
Yeah.
And you can also hear our Keith at the FMP Paracon September 28th. Months out in advance, I know, but I just got to plug it. Keith and Dave will be at our Paracon.
Yeah, I've already got it on the calendar. I just haven't put in for the time off yet, because it's way too ahead of time to put in for the time off.
Exactly.
I'll be there, though.
And Dave, where can we hear about Spaced Out Radio?
Go to spacedoutradio.com. You can check everything out there. We're all over Facebook. We're all on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR. We're everywhere, so come check us out.
Exactly, and get the swag. You can get the swag.
Exactly.
And Cole, where can we hear about Statement of Sound DJ services?
Well, you can find us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/SOSDJPro. We will also be at Paracon, providing some awesome paranormal music.
Well, you're on the team, so you're going to be there anyway.
Oh, whatever.
Oh.
I think you just got drafted.
No, he's on the team.
Yeah, isn't that illegal now? Come on.
Steve, where can we find out more about your drone services?
You can find me on Facebook at Pacific Northwest Photography, or on Instagram, so at PNW Droneography. And always alongside you if you need me as well.
Exactly. Looking for Bigfoot or aliens, whichever.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We don't go look for them. They find us. And Gary, where can we hear about Night Dreams Talk Radio? Because I know you have your own show as well.
Yeah, you can find us at nightdreamstalkradio.com. You can find us on about 9 radio stations, and we're growing. And I love Facebook.
Oh, yeah. I think Facebook is the best advertising platform out there. And if you have paranormal issues, whether it's a haunting, an entity, an abduction, a UFO sighting, a Bigfoot sighting, it really doesn't matter. We deal with everything. You can find Forest Moon Paranormal, which S4 is the voice of, on Facebook. Just look for Forest Moon Paranormal and join the group. We have a page as well, but everything we do, all of our operations are straight on the group. And next week, March 2nd, I think, yeah, we are talking, what's this astral travel that Forest Moon Paranormal does? Is it possible? And what's the difference between astral travel and remote viewing? And we'll be getting in depth with astral travel. We also have our astral school, which I believe we're doing in March. I'll get the dates locked in, along with extended care team. Because within FMP, we have our own therapist, we have our own scientists. We have a very well-rounded team when it comes to, which is funny because, you know, you have your evidence collection teams, which all they're all about is getting that cool picture and that really neat EVP. And they do it in the name of science, but they don't have scientists. They use technology, and that's not science. But we have our own scientists. We have our own psychiatric field, our own therapist, our own extended care team, which handles the education side, the protection side, and whatnot. And we're well-rounded. And our own drone operator for mountain operations. So,
yeah, is he bringing those to the Paracon?
If he makes it, Steve.
I
believe that was a hint.
That was a big
100%. Kylie says that she's going to make me go anyway, so I'm definitely going to be there.
Of course he is. He's got to be there. He's going to do a drone exercise for us. So I want to thank our crew tonight, Colweg Leitner, FMP Culture and Lore Research Specialist and owner of Statement of Sound DJ Services. Steve Monchok, our drone operator and mountain ops specialist. R. Keith Andrews, our FMP alien race specialist. Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio. And, of course, Gary Tombstone Anderson of Night Dreams Talk Radio. So, as always, you can catch us on Night Dreams Talk Radio every Saturday, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. And KSVU 90.1 FM every Saturday from 10 to midnight. And like I said, next week, February 23rd. No, never mind. That was tonight.
It's so done.
It's been a long night. It's been a long day, actually. So, folks, without you, there is no S4. Keep your eyes to the skies, and we'll see you next week.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, boys. I'm running here, guys. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, of course.
I always appreciate it. Sorry
Thanks,
it was so quiet tonight. I was just... Ow!